Welcome, traveller of the mind, to a sanctuary built of silence and starlight. Before we begin our journey together, take a moment to find the most comfortable position you can imagine. Let your body sink into the surface beneath you, feeling the gentle pull of gravity not as a weight, but as a warm embrace, holding you securely in this present moment. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to solve. The world outside has paused, waiting patiently while you attend to the most important task of all, your own rest. Close your eyes and visualize a velvet curtain slowly descending, dimming the lights, softening the edges of the room, and wrapping you in a cocoon of safety. Breathe in deeply, drawing the air down into the very bottom of your lungs, imagining it is cool, crisp, and cleansing. Hold it there for a heartbeat, acknowledging the life within you. Now, exhale slowly, releasing every ounce of tension, letting it dissipate like steam rising into the cold night air. With every breath, you're becoming heavier, softer, and more deeply connected to the rhythm of the cosmos. We're about to embark on a voyage through the season of rest, a season of profound beauty and quiet transformation. We will drift through the wonders of winter, floating like a leaf on a slow-moving river, observing the magic of the cold without ever feeling the chill. You are safe, you are warm, and you are ready to dream. Let your mind become as vast and open as a winter sky, ready to receive the soothing truths of the season. Picture yourself now standing in a vast open field under a pale grey sky. The air is still, holding its breath in anticipation. From the clouds above, the first miracle of winter begins to descend. It is the snowflake. Consider for a moment the sheer impossibility of what is happening. High above the earth, water vapour has met cold air, and instead of freezing into a simple block of ice, it has organised itself into a masterpiece of geometry. Imagine you can slow time down, freezing the motion of a single flake as it hovers before your eyes. You see the delicate six-sided structure, a hexagon born from the molecular laws of water. This is not random chaos, it is perfect order. As the crystal grows, branches sprout from the six corners, forming a star that has never existed before and will never exist again in exactly this form. This distinctiveness is a calming truth of the universe, that nature possesses an infinite capacity for creativity. Even in the trillions of flakes that fall in a single storm, there is no repetition. Each one tells a unique story of its journey through the atmosphere, shaped by the specific humidity and temperature it encountered on its long, drifting fall to Earth. Visualize this single flake landing gently on the sleeve of your coat. It sits there, a tiny, intricate jewel of ice, fleeting and perfect. It reminds us that beauty does not need to be permanent to be profound. It asks nothing of you but to be witnessed. And as you watch, another flake joins it, and then another, a silent accumulation of millions of unique masterpieces coming together to soften the sharp edges of the world. As the snow continues to fall, thickening into a lush, white carpet, you might notice a profound change in the acoustic landscape around you. The world has gone quiet. This is not just a poetic silence, it is a physical reality of the winter season. Fresh fluffy snow acts as one of nature's most effective sound absorbers. Imagine the snowflakes stacking loosely on top of one another, creating a porous surface filled with tiny pockets of air. These trapped spaces between the crystals act like acoustic tiles in a recording studio, dampening sound waves and preventing them from bouncing off the hard ground. Visualize walking through a deep forest after a heavy snowfall. The usual crunch of your footsteps is muffled, turning into a soft, rhythmic whisper. The distant noise of the chaotic world, the hum of traffic, the machinery of civilization, is absorbed by the blanket of white, leaving only a pure, resonant stillness. It is a silence so deep you can almost hear the beating of your own heart. This acoustic dampening creates a sense of intimacy and solitude, wrapping the landscape in a hush that feels sacred. It is as if the earth itself has whispered hush to its inhabitants. inviting everything to lower its voice and listen. In this silence, your mind finds permission to stop racing. The external quiet facilitates an internal quiet, a mirroring of the landscape where your thoughts become as soft and unobtrusive as the falling snow. Deep beneath this blanket of silence, hidden from the naked eye, a miraculous process of preservation is taking place. While the surface seems dormant, life is merely pausing, entering a state of deep, restorative rest known as hibernation. Cast your mind's eye downward, through the layers of snow and soil, into a cozy, leaf-lined den where a bear has curled itself into a ball of warmth. This is not merely sleep as we know it. It is a masterful biological adaptation. The bear's heartbeat, which usually thumps with a vigorous rhythm of life, slows dramatically, dropping to a fraction of its normal rate. It is a suspended animation, a trance-like state where the demands of the body are minimized to survive the scarcity of the season. But it is not just the bears. Imagine the wood frogs, who allow themselves to freeze solid, their hearts stopping completely, only to thaw and hop away when spring returns. Visualize the ground squirrels and the bats, all tucked away in their secret sanctuaries, breathing so shallowly it is imperceptible. This great slumber is a reminder that rest is not a sign of weakness, but a strategy for survival. It teaches us that there are times to run and times to be still, times to consume and times to conserve. The earth does not panic in the winter, it rests. It trusts that the energy it saves now will be the fuel for the rebirth to come. You too can embrace this hibernation of the spirit, allowing your own rhythms to slow down, syncing your pulse with the sleeping world beneath the snow. Drifting upwards now, rising from the hidden burrows and through the canopy of the forest, we float toward the very top of the world, where the winter nights are long and the skies are a canvas for the celestial. Here, in the high latitudes, the darkness is not empty. It is the stage for the aurora borealis, the northern lights. Imagine standing on a frozen lake, the ice thick and stable beneath you, looking up into the vast star-speckled dome. Suddenly, a ribbon of pale green light unfurls across the horizon, undulating like a curtain caught in a slow-motion breeze. These lights are the result of a cosmic conversation between our sun and our planet. Charged particles from the sun travel millions of miles through space, riding the solar wind until they collide with the magnetic fields of Earth. As they are funneled toward the poles, they dance with the gases in our atmosphere, igniting in glowing colours. Oxygen gives us the ghostly greens and rare reds. Nitrogen paints the sky in shades of blue and purple. Picture the lights shifting and shimmering, a silent symphony of luminescence playing out over the frozen landscape. It is a reminder that even in the coldest, darkest months, there is vibrant energy and breathtaking beauty. The winter sky does not shut down. It puts on its most spectacular show. Watching this ethereal dance in your mind's eye, you feel a sense of awe and expansion, realizing that you are part of a universe that creates art on a planetary scale, a dazzling display that requires the darkness of winter to be truly seen. Beneath these dancing lights, standing as silent sentinels, are the evergreen trees. While the deciduous trees have shed their leaves, entering a state of bare vulnerability, the pines, spruces and firs remain stoic and clothed in colour. Visualize a majestic pine tree, its branches heavy with snow, yet vibrant green needles poking through the white. These trees are marvels of winter engineering. Unlike the broad, flat leaves of an oak or maple, which would be damaged by freezing temperatures and heavy snow loads, the needle is designed for endurance. Picture the shape of a single needle, thin, compact, and coated in a waxy substance called cutin. This wax seals moisture inside the tree, preventing it from drying out in the winter winds. The shape allows snow to slide off easily, so the branches do not snap under the weight. But more than their biology, the evergreen offers a deep psychological comfort. In a monochromatic world of white and grey, they are a promise of life's persistence. They are the constant in a changing season, a symbol of resilience that says, I am here, I am alive, and I endure. Imagine the scent of the pine, sharp, clean, and woodsy, cutting through the cold air. It is the smell of strength. Walking through a winter forest, the evergreens provide shelter for birds and animals, creating pockets of warmth and safety. They remind us that even when the environment is harsh, we can adapt, we can find our protective coating, and we can remain vibrant. From the cold, pine-scented air of the forest, let us transport our awareness to a place of enclosed warmth. Imagine a small, sturdy cabin nestled at the edge of the woods. Inside, the focal point of comfort is the hearth. For thousands of years, the fireplace has been the heart of the winter home, a source of life and a gathering place for stories. Visualize a stack of seasoned logs, perhaps oak or birch, neatly arranged in the grate. A spark catches, and soon, small tongues of orange and blue flame begin to lick at the bark. There is a primal satisfaction in watching a fire. It is living television, a mesmerizing dance of energy that draws the eye and calms the mind. Feel the radiant heat reaching out to you, penetrating the layers of your clothing, warming your skin and then your bones. The crackle and pop of the wood is a cozy rhythm, a natural percussion that signifies safety. In the ancient past, this fire kept the predators at bay and the frost from the door. Today, it keeps away the stress of the modern world. The smell of wood smoke, faintly sweet and earthy, triggers a deep ancestral memory of community and survival. As you watch the embers glow with a pulsing deep red light, you feel a profound sense of containment. The cold is outside, vast and wild, but you are inside, contained, warm, and protected by the ancient magic of the flame. As we sit by this imaginary fire, we must acknowledge the astronomical event that defines this season, the winter solstice. In the Northern Hemisphere, this is the day of the shortest daylight and the longest night. But rather than a time of darkness, it has historically been celebrated as the return of the light. Visualize the great wheel of the year turning slowly. On this specific day, the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, seeming to stand still for a moment before beginning its slow climb back northward. Solstice literally means sun standing still. Imagine the ancient peoples watching the horizon, waiting for this turning point, knowing that from this moment on, the days will begin to lengthen, minute by minute. It is a moment of deep hope and cosmic balance. The darkness has reached its peak, and inevitably the light must return. This cycle teaches us patience and faith in the rhythms of time. It reminds us that after the longest night, the dawn is not just a possibility, it is a certainty. Visualize the sun as a pale gold disk, hanging low and heavy, casting long dramatic shadows across the snow. These long shadows transform the familiar landscape into something dreamlike and elongated. Celebrating the solstice is celebrating the pause before the renewal, a moment to honour the dark while welcoming the light that is already on its way back to us. In the far reaches of the north, where the solstice night stretches on for weeks, the creatures of the land have evolved in fascinating ways to embrace the dark. Consider the reindeer, the gentle wanderers of the tundra. Picture a herd of them moving slowly through the snow, their breath forming clouds of steam. If you were to look closely into the eyes of a reindeer, you would witness a biological marvel. In the summer, their eyes are a golden colour, reflecting the constant sunlight of the Arctic day. But as winter descends and the land is plunged into permanent twilight, a transformation occurs. The tissue behind their retina changes structure, turning a deep, mesmerizing blue. This blue coloration allows their eyes to scatter more light, increasing their sensitivity to the faint illumination of the winter moon and stars. It is as if they put on night vision goggles designed by nature itself. This adaptation helps them spot predators in the gloom and find the lichen hidden beneath the snow. Imagine looking into those deep blue eyes, seeing a reflection of the winter night itself. It is a profound example of how life does not just endure the environment, it becomes one with it, The reindeer does not fight the dark. It changes itself to see better within it. It invites us to adjust our own perceptions, to look differently at the world when the light dims, and to find clarity even in the shadows. Let us drift now from the icy tundra back to the comfort of the indoors, to a sensory experience that defines the coziness of winter. Imagine your hands wrapping around a ceramic mug, heavy and warm. The heat from the vessel transfers instantly to your palms, a grounding sensation that travels up your arms and settles in your chest. Inside the mug is a rich, steaming beverage, perhaps a velvety hot chocolate. Visualize the steam rising in lazy swirls, carrying with it the scent of cocoa, warm milk, and perhaps a hint of vanilla or a dust of cinnamon. This is not just a drink, it is a ritual of self-care. As you lift the mug to your lips, the warmth meets your face, contrasting beautifully with the memory of the cold outside. The first sip is a revelation of texture and temperature. The sweetness triggers a release of endorphins, the chemicals of happiness, while the heat works to raise your internal body temperature, fighting the winter chill from the inside out. In many cultures, warm spices like ginger, nutmeg, and cloves are added to winter drinks not just for flavour, but for their blood-warming properties. Picture the liquid warmth sliding down, settling in your stomach like a glowing ember. It is a simple pleasure, accessible and immediate, grounding you in the physical joy of the moment, reminding you that comfort is always within reach. Finally, let our minds expand to encompass the grandest architects of the winter world, the glaciers. Far from the cozy fire in the high mountains and polar regions lie these massive rivers of ice. A glacier is not merely frozen water, it is a living, moving archive of time. Imagine a valley filled with a colossal sheet of ice, hundreds of feet thick. It appears solid and immovable, yet it is flowing downhill, driven by its own immense weight, moving at a pace so slow it is imperceptible to the human eye. Glacial pace. The ice of a glacier is not white like fresh snow. It is often a stunning deep blue. This is because the sheer weight of the ice creates such density that it squeezes out all the air bubbles, leaving crystals so pure they absorb every colour of the spectrum except blue. Visualize this glowing sapphire landscape, ancient and majestic. The water frozen within these structures fell as snow hundreds, perhaps thousands of years ago. To look at a glacier is to look at the past held in suspension. They carve the mountains, shaping the valleys and fjords, acting as the sculptors of the earth. In their presence, time feels different, longer, deeper, less urgent. They remind us of the power of slow, persistent movement. They teach us that you do not need to rush to leave a mark on the world. You simply need to keep moving, steady and true, carrying the weight of your experience with grace and beauty. From that majestic, slow-moving river of ice, let your mind drift to the concept of shelter, fashioned from the snow itself. It is a paradox of the winter world that the very substance which defines the cold can also be the source of profound warmth. Consider the engineering marvel of the igloo. In the vast, treeless expanses of the Arctic, where the wind howls across the tundra, the indigenous peoples discovered that snow is not merely frozen water, but an insulator of exceptional quality. Visualize yourself crawling into a dome structure built from blocks of wind-packed snow. The moment you enter, the wind ceases. The howling gale is reduced to a distant, non-threatening hum. This silence is created by the snow's composition. As we explored earlier, it is mostly trapped air. Just as a down duvet traps air to keep you warm in bed, the walls of the igloo trap the heat generated by your body, and perhaps a small oil lamp. Inside, the temperature can be 40 to 60 degrees warmer than the biting air outside. Picture the interior, glowing with a soft, translucent blue light as the sun filters through the ice blocks. It is a womb of safety in a harsh landscape. As the heat inside melts the inner layer of the walls slightly and the cold refreezes it, a seal of ice forms, strengthening the structure and making it airtight. To sit inside an igloo is to be held by the winter, protected by the very elements you might fear, realizing that with knowledge and respect, even the coldest environment can provide a home. Stepping out from that cozy dome of snow in your mind's eye, you lift your gaze to the canopy of the cosmos. The winter sky offers a clarity that the humid haze of summer can never match. In the cold months, the atmosphere holds significantly less moisture, and the nights are longer, providing a window into the deep universe that is polished to a diamond-like transparency. It is in this season that the most brilliant constellations take the stage. Visualize the mighty hunter, Orion, rising high in the southern sky. You can trace his belt, 3 perfect stars in a row, and find the glowing nebula hanging from it like a sword, a nursery where new stars are being born even as you watch. To the bottom right of the hunter stands Rigel, a blue supergiant star burning with a fierce hot light, and to the top left, Betelgeuse, a red supergiant, glowing with a cool amber warmth. The contrast of these colours is visible to the naked eye if you look with patience. This is the winter hexagon, a collection of the brightest stars visible from Earth, forming a great geometric pattern that dominates the celestial dome. Standing under this canopy, wrapped in your warmest layers, you feel a connection to the navigators and dreamers of the past who looked up at these same lights. The cold air against your face makes you feel alive, while the immensity of the star field makes your worries feel insignificantly small, dissolving into the vast, beautiful vacuum of space. Drifting your gaze down from the stars to the forest floor, we encounter a fleeting, fragile miracle known as the frost flower. This is not a plant, nor is it snow falling from above. It is a phenomenon that blooms from the earth itself. Imagine a quiet morning where the air is freezing but the ground still holds a memory of autumn's warmth. In these specific conditions, the sap within the stems of certain plants begins to expand. As it freezes, the ice is pushed out through microscopic cracks in the stem, extruded like pasta through a machine, but in layers thinner than a sheet of paper. Visualize these ribbons of white ice curling and twisting, forming intricate petal-like structures that look like white carnations or spun sugar. They are exquisitely delicate. The heat of a single human breath could melt them away. They exist only in the quiet transition of dawn, vanishing as soon as the sun climbs high. To witness a field of frost flowers is to see the earth expressing itself through physics, creating art that serves no purpose other than to be beautiful. It is a reminder of the hidden mechanics of nature, the subtle pressures and releases that occur while we sleep, crafting sculptures of ice that wait for us to discover them in the silence of the morning. In this crisp morning air, as you lean in to examine the frost flower, you notice a cloud forming from your own lips. This is the phenomenon of seeing your breath, the dragon's breath of childhood imagination. While simple in its science, it is profound in its symbolism. The air inside your body is warm and moist, a tropical environment sustaining your life. When you exhale, this warm vapour meets the frigid winter air, and the temperature drops rapidly past the dew point. The invisible gas instantly condenses into tiny droplets of liquid water and ice crystals, creating a miniature cloud. Visualize this rhythmic puff of white mist appearing and disappearing with the cadence of your breathing. It is visual proof of the fire within you. In the stark, frozen landscape, your breath is a flag of vitality, a signal that the engine of life is churning, generating heat, consuming energy, and interacting with the world. Watch the steam rise and dissipate, merging with the atmosphere. It connects you physically to the air around you, blurring the boundary between the internal and the external. It is a gentle, rhythmic meditation. Inhale the cold, clear stillness. Exhale the warm, visible proof of your existence. Through the mist of your breath, you spot a tiny movement in the branches above. It is a black-capped chickadee, a small, bold bird that defies the logic of the season. While many birds have migrated south to flee the cold, this tiny creature remains, a warrior of the winter woods. How does something so small, weighing less than a coin, survive when the temperature plummets. Visualize the bird fluffing its feathers until it looks like a round puffball toy. This is not just for show. It is a masterclass in insulation. By erecting their feathers, they trap a thick layer of air next to their warm skin, creating a natural down jacket that retains heat with incredible efficiency. But their magic goes deeper. At night, these birds enter a state of regulated hypothermia called torpor. They voluntarily lower their body temperature by several degrees to conserve energy, slowing their metabolism down to a crawl, only to rev the engine back up when the sun rises. Imagine them huddled together in a tree cavity, tiny heartbeats slowing down in unison, waiting out the long night. Their cheerful chick-a-dee-dee-dee call in the morning is a victory song, a declaration that they have conquered the darkness once again. They teach us that we do not need to be large to be strong. We simply need to be adaptable, to use our resources wisely, and to find warmth wherever we can. Seeking a warmth that matches the resilience of the chickadee, let your mind travel to a volcanic landscape where the Earth's heat breaks through the crust. Imagine a natural hot spring, a pool of steaming, mineral-rich water surrounded by deep drifts of snow. This is one of nature's most striking contrasts, the duality of fire and ice existing side by side. Visualize the steam rising in thick, lazy columns, drifting up into the pine trees, coating the needles in a layer of rime ice. The water is clear and still, heated by magma deep underground, carrying dissolved minerals like sulfur, calcium and magnesium, nature's healing bath. In the mountains of Japan, this scene is completed by the presence of the Japanese macaque, or snow monkey. Picture these primates with their thick beige fur and pink faces, sinking into the hot water up to their chins. They close their eyes in pure bliss, the snow falling gently on their heads and piling up on the rocks around them, while their bodies remain toasty warm. It is a scene of ultimate relaxation. If you were to slip into that water, you would feel the tension melt from your muscles instantly. The cold air on your face keeps you alert, while the heat envelops your body, a sensation of perfect balance. It reminds us that even in the depth of winter, the Earth remains alive and hot at its core, offering pockets of sanctuary to those who know where to look. Near these geothermal wonders, we might find a large frozen lake. If you stand by the shore on a day when the temperature is shifting rapidly, you might hear one of the most unexpected sounds of winter, the singing of the ice. We often think of ice as silent, but a large sheet of expanding or contracting ice is a giant acoustic membrane. As the temperature fluctuates, the ice expands or shrinks, causing it to crack and shift. These vibrations travel through the ice sheet, which acts like a soundboard. Because high-frequency sounds travel faster through the ice than low-frequency ones, the sound disperses, reaching your ears as a futuristic descending pew or a laser-like thwip. Visualize standing in the utter silence of the wilderness and hearing this melodic, resonant ping echoing across the frozen surface. It sounds like whale song or synthesized music from another planet. It is the lake talking, groaning, and settling into its winter skin. This dispersion of sound creates a sonic landscape that is hauntingly beautiful. It reminds you that the static landscape is actually in constant motion, responding to the touch of the sun and the wind, singing a song that only those who brave the cold get to hear. Leaving the acoustic wonder of the frozen lake, let us retreat to the warmth of a kitchen, where a bright splash of colour awaits. Winter is the season of citrus. In the darkest days of the year, nature provides the brightest fruits: oranges, clementines, grapefruits, and tangerines. This is not a coincidence of agriculture, but a gift of timing. Just when we need the boost of vitamins and the psychological lift of vibrant colour, the citrus groves in warmer climates are reaching their peak. Visualize a wooden bowl on a table, filled with bright orange satsumas. The colour creates a visual shock against the grey and white palette of the world outside. Pick one up and feel the cool, dimpled skin. As you dig your thumb in to peel it, A fine mist of citrus oil sprays into the air. Inhale deeply. That scent, zesty, sweet, sharp, and sunny, is instant aromatherapy. It cuts through the lethargy of winter, waking up the senses. As you pull the segments apart and taste the burst of sweet tart juice, you are tasting the stored energy of the summer sun. It is a capsule of light delivered to you in the middle of winter. The simple act of peeling an orange becomes a ritual of gratitude, a connection to the sun that feels so distant, yet is right there in the palm of your hand. Wrapped in the scent of citrus, you pull your cardigan tighter around you, feeling the texture of the fabric. This brings us to the ancient comfort of wool. For thousands of years, the fleece of sheep has been humanity's primary defense against the winter chill. But wool is more than just a fabric. It is a biological masterpiece. Visualize the microscopic structure of a single wool fiber. It is crimped, like a tiny spring or a wave. This crimp prevents the fibers from lying flat against each other, creating millions of tiny air pockets within the yarn. As we have learned, trapped air is the secret to warmth. When you wear a thick cable-knit sweater, you're wearing a layer of air heated by your own body. Furthermore, wool contains lanolin, a natural wax that makes it water-resistant, and it has the unique ability to absorb moisture from your skin while still feeling dry to the touch. Imagine the feeling of a heavy hand-knitted blanket weighing down on your legs. It is a tactile embrace, a hug from the natural world. The slight scratchiness, the smell of the yarn, the weight of the weave, all of it signals to the brain that you're safe, prepared, and insulated. It connects you to a history of shepherds and weavers, a lineage of warmth that stretches back through the ages. Finally, let your mind sink beneath the ice of the frozen lake we visited earlier, down into the dim, quiet waters below. Here lies a principle of physics that saves life on Earth every winter: the density anomaly of water. Most substances become denser and heavier as they get colder, turning into a solid that sinks. If water behaved this way, lakes would freeze from the bottom up, becoming solid blocks of ice that would kill every fish, turtle, and plant within them. But water is magic. As it cools, it becomes denser only until it reaches 4 degrees Celsius. At that specific point, as it gets colder and approaches freezing, it suddenly becomes lighter, less dense. This implies that the coldest water, the ice, floats to the top. Visualize this protective shield of ice forming on the surface, sealing the lake from the wind and the extreme cold above. Beneath this ceiling, the water remains a stable, liquid sanctuary, holding steady at that magical 4 degrees. Down here, the fish move in slow motion, their metabolisms lowered, suspended in a twilight world. The turtles bury themselves in the mud, waiting. It is a hidden universe of survival, protected by the very ice that seems so harsh from above. It is a comforting thought to end on, that nature bends the rules of physics to protect life, creating a safe haven in the deep, allowing the heart of the lake to keep beating, waiting patiently for the spring. From the sanctuary of the liquid world beneath the frozen lake, let your awareness slowly rise, breaking through the surface and drifting toward the eaves of a sleeping cottage nearby. Here, suspended from the roofline, we find one of winter's most delicate sculptures, the icicle. Consider the patience required for its creation. An icicle is born from a cycle of warmth and cold, a partnership between the midday sun and the freezing air. Visualize the process. The sun melts a patch of snow on the roof, sending a trickle of water toward the edge. As this droplet falls away from the warmth of the shingles, it meets the biting air and freezes instantly, suspended in mid-air. Drop by drop, layer by layer, the structure extends downward, forming a perfect tapered cone. It is a recording of time, with each ring of ice representing a moment of freezing. Picture the sunlight catching these crystal spears in the late afternoon. They act as prisms, bending the light and scattering rainbows across the siding of the house. They are clear as glass, yet stronger, holding a fragile beauty that exists on the edge of 2 states, solid and liquid. Watching a single drop gather at the tip of an icicle, swelling until gravity pulls it loose, is a meditation on the slow, rhythmic passage of time. It reminds us that even in the freezing standstill of winter there is movement, there is growth, and there is a constant dripping transformation. As the temperature drops further with the setting sun, a different kind of crystal begins to form, not from liquid water, but directly from the air itself. This is the phenomenon of hoarfrost. Unlike the heavy blanket of snow or the clear glass of the icicle, hoarfrost is a deposition of water vapour directly into solid ice, bypassing the liquid stage entirely. Imagine walking out into a garden on a morning of high humidity and deep cold. The world has been encrusted in diamonds. Every surface, the wire of a fence, the dried head of a sunflower, the needle of a pine, has grown a coat of intricate spiky crystals. Look closely at a single blade of grass. It is covered in feathery, fern-like ice structures that grow outward, defying gravity. This white frost creates a texture of impossible fragility. It softens the hard lines of the world, turning a rusty gate into a glittering entrance to a fairyland, and a barren branch into a wand of white lace. The silence of the hoarfrost is profound. It forms without a sound, building its cathedral of crystals molecule by molecule in the dark. It is a reminder that nature loves to decorate even the smallest, most overlooked things. To witness a landscape covered in hoarfrost is to witness a fleeting masterpiece, for as soon as the sun rises high enough to touch it with warmth, the crystals will vanish like a phantom, leaving only dew in their wake. Beneath this frosted surface, under the heavy accumulation of the snowpack, there exists a secret world that few of us ever see. This is the subnivean zone, a Latin term meaning under the snow. While we walk on top of the snow, assuming the ground below is solid and lifeless, there is actually a bustling network of life occurring in the space between the earth and the snow layer. Visualize the heat rising from the ground, melting a small clearance just an inch or two high, while the snow above acts as a roof. In this hidden corridor, mice, voles, and shrews have built a winter city. They scurry along these dark, insulated tunnels, safe from the wind and the hawk, protected by the very snow that suppresses the landscape. The temperature in these tunnels remains hovering just around freezing, regardless of how cold the air gets above. It is a cozy, humid, and safe environment. Picture the tiny heartbeat of a field mouse as it navigates this labyrinth, finding seeds stored from the autumn. It is a comforting realization that life finds a way to create pockets of safety. Just as we retreat into our homes, the smallest creatures have their own hidden hallways, a parallel universe of activity taking place right under our boots, unseen and secure. High above these hidden tunnels, patrolling the open fields with a ghostly silence, flies the master of the winter skies, the snowy owl. Most owls are creatures of the night, blended into the browns and greys of the forest bark. But the snowy owl is a creature of the endless white, evolved to disappear into the bleakest landscapes on Earth. Visualize this magnificent bird perched on a fence post. Its plumage is a dense, brilliant white, sometimes flecked with black bars, allowing it to vanish against a snowbank. But it is the eyes that hold you, piercing golden yellow orbs that can spot a movement from nearly a mile away. When the owl takes flight, it does so without a whisper. Its feathers are serrated at the edges, a specialized adaptation that breaks up the turbulence of the air, muffling the swooshing sound that other birds make. It glides like smoke. This silence is not just for stealth. It allows the owl to listen. Its hearing is so acute it can detect the rustle of a mouse in those subnivean tunnels deep beneath the snow. To watch a snowy owl in flight is to see grace in motion, a symbol of wisdom and patience. It does not rush. It waits, it watches, and it moves with a calculated calm that commands the winter landscape. As the snowy owl glides beneath the night sky, you might look up and witness a celestial phenomenon that only occurs in the frozen months, the winter halo or the 22-degree halo. This is a large, luminous ring that encircles the moon, casting a ghostly, ethereal glow. This ring is not a trick of the mind, but a trick of the atmosphere. High above you, in the thin, wispy cirrus clouds, millions of hexagonal ice crystals are suspended. As the moonlight passes through these crystals, they act like millions of tiny prisms, refracting the light at a precise angle of 22 degrees. Visualize this perfect circle of pearlescent light, sometimes tinged with faint red on the inside and blue on the outside, acting as a frame for the moon. In folklore, this was often seen as a sign of a coming storm, a warning to gather wood and prepare for deep snow. But in this moment of quiet observation, it is simply a crown of light. It connects the moisture in our atmosphere with the light of the cosmos, creating a geometry of awe. It makes the night feel vast and the moon feel like a watching eye, bathing the sleeping world in a soft, diffused radiance that touches the snow with silver. As the moon begins to set and the sun prepares to rise, the world enters a phase of breathtaking colour known as the blue hour. In winter, this transition time is particularly long and vivid due to the angle of the sun and the reflective nature of the snow. Before the sun actually breaks the horizon, the direct golden light is blocked, but the blue light of the atmosphere is reflected and scattered down onto the white landscape. Because snow is highly reflective, it acts as a canvas, catching this scattered blue light and amplifying it. Visualize the world around you turning into a monochrome dream of indigo, sapphire, and pale periwinkle. The shadows in the drifts are not black, but a deep, rich navy. The trees are silhouettes against a cobalt sky. This blue light has a physiological effect on the brain. It is deeply calming, triggering a sense of serenity and coolness. It is a time of suspension, neither night nor day, where the familiar world feels strange and magical. The silence seems deeper in the blue light, the air crisper. It is a visual lullaby, washing the world in cool tones before the warm gold of the morning breaks the spell. With the rising light, the surface of the snow reveals a story written during the night. The fresh powder is no longer a blank page. It is covered in the script of animal tracks. Tracking is the art of reading the winter narrative. Look closely at the indentations left in the drifts. Here, a straight line of precise small prints. A fox has trotted through, placing its hind feet exactly into the spots where its front feet landed to conserve energy. A movement known as direct registering. Over there, the chaotic paired prints of a squirrel, showing where it hopped and paused to dig, and near the tree line the heavy dragging tracks of a porcupine. Each set of tracks tells a story of survival, of a journey made for food, for water, or for shelter. Visualize the path of a rabbit. The two large back feet landing ahead of the smaller front feet as it bounds. You can see where it paused, perhaps to listen to the wind before continuing. These tracks remind us that we're not alone. Even when the woods seem empty, they are full of life. The snow captures these fleeting moments of movement, preserving them as temporary fossils, allowing us to witness the secret lives of our wild neighbours long after they have passed. Following these tracks might lead you to a scene where the air itself seems to be hiding the world. We're entering the realm of ice fog, or in its milder form, a thermal inversion. Normally air gets colder as you go higher, but in the deep winter, specifically in valleys, a layer of cold, dense air can get trapped near the ground, pinned down by a layer of warmer air above. This trap holds moisture and particulates, creating a thick, low-hanging fog that swallows the landscape. Visualize standing in this fog. The trees 100 yards away are gone, dissolved into the white void. The sound is muffled even more than usual, creating a small, intimate room around you. As the moisture in the fog touches freezing surfaces, it can settle as rime ice, coating everything in a fuzzy white layer. Being in a winter fog is a sensory deprivation experience that forces you to turn inward. The visual distractions of the horizon are removed. There is only you and the immediate few feet of space around you. It is a blanket drawn over the head of the valley, a time for the land to dream without being watched. It feels cozy, private, and enclosed, a natural barrier that says, "Rest now, there is nothing to see out there." Emerging from the fog, we might spot a creature that has mastered the art of heat conservation through a fascinating anatomical adaptation. Let us focus on the Arctic fox, specifically its tail. This animal does not just rely on its thick white coat, it carries its own blanket. The tail of the Arctic fox, often called a brush, is incredibly bushy and thick. When the fox curls up to sleep in the sub-zero snow, it does not just lie down. It curls into a tight ball and wraps this luxurious tail around its face, covering its nose and mouth. Visualize this circle of warmth. The tail acts as a scarf, trapping the warm air from the fox's breath and recycling it. This pre-warmed air is then inhaled back into the lungs, preserving core body temperature. It is a self-sustaining heat loop. The fox sleeps soundly in the open tundra, a tiny donut of fur defying the freezing wind. This image evokes a deep sense of self-sufficiency. It reminds us that we often have the resources we need within us, or within our reach. We can wrap ourselves in our own comfort, creating a barrier against the cold, finding a way to breathe warmth even when the air around us is biting. Finally, let us retreat from the wild, cold tundra and step back into the warmth of the human hearth to experience the slow, grounding magic of winter cooking. In the summer, we eat light and fresh, but winter is the season of the stew, the soup, and the slow roast. This is not just about nutrition, it is about the alchemy of heat and time. Visualize a heavy cast iron pot sitting on a low flame. Inside, root vegetables, potatoes, carrots, turnips, are mingling with broth and herbs. The cooking process is slow, taking hours. As the liquid simmers, it releases steam into the dry winter air of the house, humidifying the room and softening the harshness of the season. But it is the smell that truly transforms the space. The savoury aroma of onions, thyme, and bay leaves drifts into every corner of the home, triggering a primal feeling of safety and abundance. It is the scent of care. Listening to the gentle, rhythmic bubbling of the pot is a sound of sustenance. It tells you that provisions have been gathered, that warmth is being generated, and that a meal is coming. This slow preparation forces us to slow down as well. You cannot rush a winter stew. You must wait, and in that waiting, there is a peaceful acceptance of the season's pace, a realization that the best things in life take time to steep, to blend, and to ripen. As the aroma of that slow simmering stew settles into the wood of the table and the fabric of the curtains, filling the house with a sense of patience, let us drift from the internal warmth of nourishment to the external warmth of a sanctuary built specifically for the winter body. Imagine stepping out of the kitchen, through a heavy door, and into a small cedar-lined room. We are entering the ancient tradition of the sauna. For centuries, cultures in the coldest reaches of the north have understood that the best way to embrace the freeze is to conquer it with intense dry heat. Visualize the space. The walls are raw, golden wood, soft to the touch and fragrant with the scent of pine and resin. In the corner, a pile of volcanic stone sits atop a stove, glowing with stored energy. There is a ritualistic silence here. As you sit on the wooden bench, you feel the heat wrapping around you like a heavy, invisible blanket. It penetrates deep into the muscles, loosening the tightness held in the shoulders, the back, and the legs. When a ladle of water is poured over the hot stones, a sudden hiss announces the rising steam, loili, as the Finns call it, the spirit of the sauna. This wave of humidity rolls over you, creating a momentary intensity that forces you to breathe deeply, to close your eyes, and to surrender. The contrast is the key. Outside, the world is frozen and brittle, but in here you're pliable, warm and fluid. It is a profound resetting of the nervous system, a deliberate induction of a fever state that burns away stress and leaves the mind clear and the skin glowing, ready to face the cool air once more with a renewed sense of invincibility. Stepping out from that wooden haven, cooling down in the crisp evening air, You look up to see that the night has fully descended, but it is not dark. The world is bathed in a luminescence so bright you could almost read a book by it. We are witnessing the power of the winter moon. In the summer, the full moon sits low in the sky, often hidden by humidity and leaves. But in the winter, due to the tilt of the earth, the full moon climbs to its highest trajectory in the celestial dome. It reigns supreme, a brilliant silver coin stamped against the ink-black void. Visualize the light hitting the snow-covered landscape. Because snow is composed of ice crystals, it acts as a massive reflector, bouncing the moonlight back up toward the sky. This creates a phenomenon where the night is turned into a ghostly monochromatic day. Shadows are stark and long, painted in shades of deep charcoal and navy blue, while the open fields glow with a pearlescent white. This is the snow moon, or the wolf moon, of ancient lore. Under this light, the world feels suspended in a silver dream. The familiar colours of brown and green are gone, replaced by this binary palette of light and dark. Standing in this moon-washed world, you feel a sense of clarity and visibility that usually belongs to the day, yet it possesses the quiet, secret atmosphere of the night. It is a time for the eyes to rest on the horizon, seeing for miles across the illuminated drifts, realizing that the winter night is not a time of blindness, but a different kind of seeing. Under this high, bright moon, the snow is deep, waist-deep in places, yet you find yourself moving across it with a rhythmic, floating ease. You're wearing snowshoes. This ancient technology is a masterpiece of biomimicry, inspired by the oversized paws of the snowshoe hare and the lynx. Visualize the shape of the frame, a teardrop of bent ash wood or lightweight aluminum, laced with a webbing of rawhide or synthetic decking. The concept is simple physics, displacement. By spreading your weight over a larger surface area, you defy the urge of gravity to pull you down. Instead of sinking and struggling, you float on top of the crust. There is a specific hypnotic sound to snowshoeing, a soft crump, swish, crump, swish. It is a percussion of compression. With each step, the snow packs slightly, squeaking under the webbing, followed by the quiet slide of the lift. This mode of travel slows you down, forcing a rolling, deliberate gait that is meditative by nature. You can access the deep woods, the silence of the hollows, and the untouched expanses that are impenetrable to those in boots alone. It is a feeling of freedom, of walking on clouds, of navigating the winter world on its own terms rather than fighting against it. You are leaving a wide woven track behind you, a temporary signature on the white canvas that says, "I was here, and I moved with grace." As you glide across the open field, the air around you begins to sparkle, as if someone has shaken a jar of glitter into the atmosphere. You're walking through diamond dust. This is a weather phenomenon unique to the deepest cold, distinct from snow or fog. It occurs when the air is so cold that water vapor condenses directly into tiny ice crystals, but the sky remains perfectly clear. There are no clouds above you, only the stars and the moon, yet the air is filled with these microscopic floating prisms. Visualize the crystals tumbling slowly through the air, catching the moonlight and flashing with fleeting sparks of red, green, and silver. It is as if the air itself has become a jewel. Because these crystals are hexagonal plates, they often orient themselves horizontally as they fall, acting like tiny mirrors. If the moon is low enough, or if this happens at sunrise, these crystals can create pillars of light, vertical beams extending upward from the light source. Breathing in this air feels like drinking the purest, coldest water. It is crisp and revitalizing. Walking through diamond dust feels like walking through a suspended enchantment, a reminder that the atmosphere is not empty space, but a medium capable of creating localized magic, surrounding you with a shimmering aura that exists only in the extreme stillness of the freeze. Beneath the glittering air and the deep drifts of snow buried in the frozen soil lies a tiny, dormant speck of life waiting for a signal. This is the seed. We often think of winter as a time of death for plants, but for many seeds the cold is not an enemy, it is a key. This biological requirement is known as cold stratification. Visualize a hard-shelled seed, perhaps an acorn or a wildflower seed, resting in the dark, cold earth. Inside its shell there are chemical inhibitors, locks that prevent it from growing too soon. If the seed were to sprout during a warm spell in November, the coming frost would kill it. So the seed waits. It requires a specific number of hours of freezing temperatures to break down these chemical locks. The winter is a clock, ticking down the necessary chill hours. The frost softens the hard outer shell, creating microscopic fissures that will eventually allow water to enter. This is a profound lesson in the necessity of hardship. The freezing is not suppressing the life, it is preparing it. Without the bitter cold of January and February, the germination of spring would never happen. The seed is not sleeping in a state of abandonment. It is undergoing a crucial, silent transformation, gathering the permission it needs to burst forth. It teaches us that periods of dormancy and coldness in our own lives are often the prerequisites for our next season of growth. Leaving the silent potential of the frozen garden, let us return indoors to a concept that elevates the very idea of winter survival into an art form. We speak of the Danish concept of hygge. While often translated simply as cozy, it is far more than that. It is a conscious strategy for well-being, a deliberate cultivation of intimacy and presence. Imagine a small nook in a room, perhaps a window seat or a favourite armchair. The lighting is low and warm, never harsh. There are textures everywhere: a sheepskin rug, a velvet cushion, a pair of thick hand-knitted wool socks. But hygge is also about what is absent. There is no blue light from screens here, no discussion of politics or stresses. It is a safe harbour of simplicity. Visualise sitting in this space with a close friend or perhaps just a book. There is a sense of shelter, of being protected from the grey vastness outside. It is the celebration of the small joys, the feeling of a hot ceramic mug, the sound of wind against the glass while you're safe behind it, the pleasure of unhurried time. It transforms the trapped feeling of winter into a feeling of being embraced. By curating the sensory environment, soft touches, warm smells, gentle sounds, you turn the long dark season into a time of recharging. It is the acknowledgement that we cannot control the weather, but we can control the atmosphere of our own sanctuary. Central to this atmosphere of hygge is a single, flickering point of light, the candle. In the winter, the quality of light is just as important as the quantity. The sun, when it is out, is low and white, but our biological rhythm craves the warmth of the fire. A candle flame burns at a colour temperature of roughly 1900 Kelvin, a deep, rich orange-yellow that mimics the hues of sunset. Visualise striking a match and touching it to the wick. The flame flares, then settles into a steady teardrop shape. Stare into the centre of the flame. It dances with the subtle currents of air in the room, mesmerising and hypnotic. This light is devoid of the blue wavelengths that keep us awake and alert. Instead, it signals to the brain that the day is done, triggering the release of melatonin, the hormone of sleep. The shadows cast by candlelight are soft and wavering, blurring the sharp edges of the room, making everything appear more gentle and forgiving. The scent of the wax, beeswax with its honeyed tone or soy with a hint of vanilla, adds another layer of sensory grounding. In a world of electric harshness, the candle is a tiny, ancient campfire we invite into our living rooms, a primal source of comfort that connects us to the first humans who huddled together against the winter night. Glancing away from the hypnotic flame and out through the frosted window pane, a flash of brilliant crimson catches your eye against the white backdrop of the garden. It is a male northern cardinal. In a season defined by greys, whites and browns, the cardinal is a shock of pure, unapologetic life. Visualise his plumage, a red so saturated it seems to vibrate, a hue that absorbs the weak winter light and amplifies it. He sits perched on the bare branch of a dogwood tree, his black mask giving him a look of determination, the crest of feathers on his head standing tall. Unlike many other songbirds that migrate to the tropics, the cardinal stays. He endures. He is a resident of the snow. Seeing this splash of red is a visual anchor, a reminder that vibrancy exists even in the dormant season. It is said that the cardinal's colour comes from the berries he eats. He literally becomes the colour of the sustenance he finds. Watching him hop from branch to branch, shaking loose a dusting of snow, brings a sudden spark of joy to the observer. He is a sentinel of hope, a flying heart beating against the chest of winter, proving that one does not need to leave the cold to be beautiful, nor does one need to hide to be safe. He burns bright, a living flame in the monochrome world. Let your mind wander past the cardinal, through the woods, following the sound of flowing water until it stops. We have arrived at a frozen waterfall. In the summer, this place is a roar of motion and mist, but now the winter has pressed the pause button on gravity itself. Visualize the sheer vertical wall of ice. It is not just a sheet of white. It is a complex tapestry of colours, aquamarine, turquoise, pale jade and muddy amber, formed by minerals trapped in the suspended water. The water is frozen in layers, creating fluted columns that look like the pipes of a massive cathedral organ. Behind the translucent curtain of ice, you might still hear a faint gurgling, the heart of the river still flowing, protected by the frozen shield. But the outer world is silent. There is a profound stillness here, a sense of kinetic energy held in check. To stand at the base of a frozen waterfall is to feel small in the presence of nature's ability to halt the unstoppable. The mist that usually soaks the air has frozen onto the nearby rocks and moss, encasing them in clear, glass-like shells. It is a sculpture gallery curated by the cold, a place where time seems to have stopped completely, allowing you to examine the fluid shape of the water in a way that is impossible during any other season. As you stand before this silent ice cathedral, you feel a sudden, strange shift in the air. The temperature is rising, not slowly, but rapidly. The wind picks up, but it is not a biting polar gale. It is warm, dry, and smells of distant soil. This is the Chinook, often called the Snow Eater. In the shadow of the mountains, this wind is a legend. It occurs when moist air from the ocean rises over the mountain peaks, dumps its snow on the western slopes, and then rushes down the eastern side, warming by compression as it descends. Visualize the sky to the west. A distinct dark arch of clouds forms, the Chinook Arch, while the sky above you remains clear. As the warm wind hits the snow-covered valley, the transformation is miraculous. The temperature can jump 40 degrees in a single hour. The icicles begin to drip in a frantic rhythm. The heavy blanket of snow does not just melt, it sublimates, turning directly into vapour, vanishing before your eyes. The air feels charged with ions, sometimes causing a strange energetic buzz in the mind. It is a moment of reprieve, a reminder that the winter's grip is not absolute. The Chinook is a promise that warmth is always waiting in the wings, ready to rush down the mountain and reclaim the land, even if just for a day, bringing the sound of running water back to a frozen world. As the warm breath of the Chinook fades and the familiar stabilizing chill settles back over the valley, we are left with a sensory experience that is unique to this season, the distinct scent of winter, or perhaps more accurately, the absence of scent. Have you ever stepped out onto a porch on a freezing January morning, inhaled deeply, and felt that the air was cleaner than at any other time of year? There is a scientific beauty behind this crispness. In the warmer months, the air is heavy with volatile organic compounds, the molecules of decaying leaves, blooming flowers, and damp soil. But the deep cold locks these molecules away, freezing them into the ground and the bark. What remains is an atmosphere of profound purity. When you breathe in the winter air, you're breathing a lack of interference. It smells of ozone, of ice, and of vast empty space. This scent of snow is often described by scientists as the smell of fresh water and electricity. Visualize the air entering your nose, cool and sharp. It feels like a cleansing wave, waking up the olfactory senses without overwhelming them. It is the olfactory equivalent of a blank white canvas. This purity tells your primal brain that the environment is dormant, resting, and that you too can stop processing the complex signals of the world and simply exist in the clean, cold clarity of the moment. Retreating from that sharp, cleansing air, let us seek the tactile opposite, the embrace of flannel. Of all the fabrics that we invite into our lives during the winter, flannel is the one that speaks most directly to our need for softness. Imagine the feeling of climbing into a bed made with heavy, brushed cotton sheets on a cold night. Unlike the cool, slippery touch of silk or the crispness of percale which can shock the skin, flannel greets you with instant warmth. This is due to a process called napping, where the fabric is brushed with fine metal bristles to raise the fibres. These raised fibres create a fuzzy, chaotic landscape on a microscopic level, trapping millions of tiny pockets of warm air against your body. It is insulation disguised as softness. Visualize the texture against your skin, gentle, yielding, and familiar. There is a psychological safety in flannel. It is the fabric of lumberjacks and pajamas, of hard work and deep rest. As you pull the heavy duvet up to your chin, the friction of the flannel sheets locks the heat in, creating a microclimate where the cold of the room cannot touch you. It is a humble luxury, a reminder that comfort does not need to be expensive or rare. It only needs to be soft, warm, and ready to hold you. Drifting deeper into this landscape of soft white textures, our mind wanders to the snowy woodlands where a creature of exquisite adaptation moves like a phantom. This is the ermine, or the short-tailed weasel. In the summer, this small, energetic hunter wears a coat of chocolate brown to blend in with the earth and the roots. But as the daylight shortens and the snow begins to fall, a hormonal switch is flipped, and the ermine sheds its dark fur to reveal a coat of pure, brilliant white. Visualize this sleek animal flowing over a snowbank. It is nearly invisible, a ghost in the landscape, betrayed only by the tip of its tail, which remains a striking jet-black ink drop. This black tip is a masterful decoy. Predators like hawks will focus on the contrasting black dot, rather than the body of the weasel, often missing their strike. To watch an ermine is to watch a ribbon of energy. They are curious and bold, often popping their heads up from behind a drift to survey their domain. Their white coat is denser and warmer than their summer fur, a royal robe of insulation. The ermine teaches us the art of transformation. It does not hide from the changing season, it changes with the season, wearing the winter as a second skin, proving that to survive the cold, one must become one with it. The ermine disappears behind a cluster of trees that define the aesthetic of the northern winter, the paper birch. While the evergreens provide colour, the birch provides texture and graphic contrast. Visualize a grove of these slender trees standing against a backdrop of deep snow. Their bark is not brown, but a chalky, luminous white, marked with horizontal black scars that look like eyes watching the forest. Come closer to one of these trees in your mind's eye. The outer layer of the bark is peeling away in paper-thin, curling scrolls. This is a natural exfoliation that sheds moss, lichen, and pests that might try to take hold. Reach out and touch this peeling bark. It feels smooth, almost like parchment or dry skin, and it is remarkably tough. Birch bark is filled with natural oils that make it waterproof and rot-resistant. So much so that a fallen birch log might rot away on the inside, leaving the hollow tube of bark perfectly intact on the forest floor. In the pale winter sunlight, the birch grove looks like a gathering of ghosts or a series of white pillars in a natural temple. They are resilient pioneers, often the first trees to grow back after a fire, standing tall and pale in the cold, symbols of renewal and the beautiful stripping away process of winter. At the base of these white pillars, where the snow has melted away slightly near the roots, you might find a patch of shocking velvety green. This is moss. While the ferns have withered and the leaves have fallen, moss remains vibrantly awake. It is an opportunist of the cold. Because mosses do not have roots to draw water from deep in the soil, they rely on surface moisture. Winter, with its melting snow and high humidity near the ground, is a time of plenty for them. Visualize a cushion of star moss or fern moss, glowing like an emerald jewel against the monochromatic greys and whites of the forest floor. Run your hand over it. It is soft, damp, and springy, a miniature forest that you could crush with a thumb, yet it withstands the crushing weight of the snowpack for months. Moss contains a natural chemical antifreeze that prevents its cells from bursting when the temperature drops. Seeing this green patch is a secret reassurance. It is the colour of life, holding its ground, waiting patiently for the canopy to open up. It reminds us that even when the world seems asleep, there are pockets of wakefulness, tiny ecosystems that thrive in the damp shadows of the chill. From the damp earth of the forest, let us travel back to the damp, cool earth of human preservation, the root cellar. Before refrigerators hummed in every kitchen, the root cellar was the heart of winter survival. Visualize opening a heavy wooden trapdoor or walking down a set of stone steps into the hillside. The air changes instantly. It is cool, stable, and smells of wet stone, soil, and apples. This space is a masterful use of the Earth's thermal mass. Below the frost line, the ground maintains a steady temperature, cool enough to prevent spoiling, but warm enough to prevent freezing. In the dim light, you see shelves lined with the treasures of the harvest, bins of potatoes with their dusty skins, carrots buried in sand to stay crisp, and jars of pickled beets glowing like rubies. There is a profound sense of security here. This is the feeling of being stocked up. The chaos of the weather outside cannot touch these provisions. The root cellar connects us to the cycles of the earth. It is a womb of sustenance, a dark, quiet place where the energy of the summer sun is stored in the form of food, waiting to nourish us through the lean months. It is the architectural embodiment of foresight and safety. Emerging from the dark, earthy comfort of the cellar, you are greeted by a sky that defies the laws of optics. The sun is low on the horizon, but it is not alone. Flanking it on the left and right are two ghost suns, brilliant spots of light that create a haloed trinity in the sky. These are parhelia, commonly known as sundogs. This atmospheric phenomenon occurs when the air is filled with hexagonal ice crystals that are drifting downward with their flat faces parallel to the ground. These crystals act as millions of tiny floating prisms, refracting the sunlight at a specific 22-degree angle. Visualize the ethereal beauty of this sight. The central sun is bright and white, while the mock suns are often tinged with rainbows, red on the side nearest the sun, fading to blue on the outside. They seem to stand guard, loyal companions to the solar orb. Sundogs are a sign of intense cold and stable air. To witness them is to witness the sky turning into a lens. It is a moment where the atmosphere reveals its geometric precision, painting a celestial diagram of light that feels sacred and rare, a reward for those who look up into the biting cold. In this frozen, stable air where the sundogs play, sound behaves in a way that feels almost supernatural. Have you ever noticed that in the deep winter, you can hear a train whistle from miles away, or the church bells from a village in the next valley, clearer than ever before? This is the phenomenon of acoustic refraction. Normally the air gets cooler as you go higher, which causes sound waves to bend upward and get lost in the sky. But in the winter, we often experience temperature inversions, where a layer of cold, dense air sits on the ground with warmer air above it. This dense, cold air acts like a highway for sound. The sound waves try to move up, hit the warmer layer, and are bent back down toward the earth, skipping across the landscape like a stone skipping across a pond. Visualize the sound of a dog barking or a car door slamming travelling for miles, undiminished, sliding through the heavy, crystal-clear atmosphere. It creates a sense of closeness in the vast landscape. The world feels smaller, more intimate, as if the cold has woven a web that connects distant points. it forces us to listen, to pay attention to the far-off signals that are usually lost in the noise of the rising heat. Gazing out across the open fields where these sounds travel, you might spot a strange and whimsical formation that looks as if it were made by playful ghosts. These are snow rollers. They are rare, requiring a perfect storm of conditions, a layer of icy crust topped with wet, loose snow and a strong wind. When the wind catches a chunk of the top layer, it flips it over. If the wind is steady, it pushes this chunk along, and it begins to accumulate more snow, rolling into a cylinder just like a sleeping bag or a carpet. Visualize a field dotted with these natural snowballs. Some are small as teacups, others are large as barrels. Unlike the snowballs we make with our hands, these are often hollow in the centre, delicate coils of white pastry. They are ephemeral sculptures, existing only until the wind dies down or the sun melts them. Seeing them is a delightful surprise, a moment of whimsy from the often serious winter weather. It looks as if the wind has been trying to tidy up the field, rolling the snow away but leaving the job half finished. It is a playful reminder of the wind's physical presence, its ability to touch and shape the solid world in ways that mimic human hands. Turning away from the wind-sculpted field, you retreat back to the sanctuary of the indoors, seeking a weight that grounds you. You find it in the heirloom quilt. While the duvet is fluffy and airy, the quilt is dense and heavy. It is a collage of history. Visualize the patchwork of fabrics, squares of old flannel shirts, scraps of floral dresses, triangles of velvet and corduroy, all stitched together with patience and intention. Pulling a heavy quilt over your body engages the parasympathetic nervous system. The pressure stimulates the sensation of being held, slowing the heart rate and deepening the breath. But beyond the physics of weighted comfort, there is the warmth of memory. Each square is a tactile record of the past. The batting inside, perhaps wool or heavy cotton, traps the heat effectively, but it is the stitching that holds the magic. Imagine the hands that pulled the needle and thread through these layers, creating a rhythm of protection. Under the quilt, you're not just warm, you are connected to a lineage of care. The visual chaos of the patterns resolves into a feeling of absolute order and safety. It is the ultimate shelter, a heavy, colourful shield that presses you gently into the mattress, whispering that you are safe, you are home, and you are loved. Beneath the heavy, comforting weight of that heirloom quilt, tucked away in the very heart of the bedding, lies a material that is one of nature's most effective miracles of engineering: down. While we often think of feathers as the stiff quills that allow birds to fly, down is something entirely different. It is the soft, fluffy undercoating found beneath the exterior feathers of waterfowl, a three-dimensional cluster that lacks a central quill. Visualize a single cluster of down floating in the air. It resembles the head of a dandelion clock, a spherical puff of thousands of tiny soft filaments radiating outward from a barely there centre. These filaments are so fine and flexible that they interlock with one another, creating a chaotic, trapping lattice. This structure is designed to do one thing: hold on to air. When you sink into a down pillow or pull a duvet around your shoulders, you're not being warmed by the material itself, but by the layer of still air it captures next to your skin. It is warmth without weight, a cloud tethered to the earth. The sensation of down is one of absolute softness, a lack of resistance that allows your body to relax fully, as if you are being suspended in a medium that is neither solid nor liquid. It is a gentle reminder that the most powerful protection against the harshness of winter is often the lightest, a softness that does not fight the cold, but simply creates a vast, airy distance from it. At the foot of this down-covered bed, seeking the same pockets of warmth that you crave, curls the master of winter relaxation, the domestic cat. There is perhaps no creature on earth that understands the art of the winter nap better. Watch the way a cat seeks out the microclimates of a room, a square of sunlight moving across the rug, the top of a radiator, or the hollow of your legs. When the temperature drops outside, the cat transforms into a heat-seeking missile, eventually collapsing into a perfect fluid circle. This circular shape is not accidental. It is a biological strategy to minimize surface area and conserve core heat, much like the Arctic fox we visualized earlier. But the cat adds a sonic element to the coziness of the room, the purr. Visualize the cat's chest rising and falling, emitting that low rhythmic rumble. Scientists have found that the frequency of a cat's purr, between 25 and 150 Hz, is not just a sign of contentment, but a frequency that promotes the healing of bones and the lowering of blood pressure in humans. To lie in a quiet winter room and listen to the steady, motorized hum of a sleeping cat is to be anchored in the present moment. It is a vibration of pure safety, a signal that the predators are gone, the belly is full, and there is nothing to do but surrender to the heaviness of sleep. While the cat dreams in the sunbeam, your attention drifts to the object resting on the bedside table, an old hardcover book. Winter is the season of the reader. When the physical world becomes inhospitable, we retreat into the worlds of the mind. But there is a specific sensory joy to reading in winter that goes beyond the story. Visualize the physical act of opening the book. The paper, perhaps slightly aged, releases a faint vanilla-like scent, the smell of lignin breaking down over time. It is a smell of history and quietude. The texture of the paper under your fingertips feels dry and grainy, a stark contrast to the slick, cold screens of our modern lives. As you turn a page, the sound is a soft, dry whisper, a rustle that mimics the sound of dry leaves or shifting snow. In the silence of a winter house, this sound is amplified, becoming a rhythmic metronome for your thoughts. Reading allows you to be in two places at once, physically tucked under a blanket in a frozen landscape, yet mentally wandering through tropical jungles or Victorian streets. It is the ultimate hibernation of the mind, a way to pass the long, dark hours by borrowing the light of another's imagination. The book is a door that remains unlocked even when the snow has piled up against the threshold, offering an escape route that requires no boots, no coat, and no effort. Lifting your eyes from the page, you look toward the window, where the meeting of the inner warmth and the outer cold has created a barrier of condensation. The glass is no longer transparent, it is weeping. The warm, moist air of the bedroom has collided with the freezing pane, cooling instantly and turning back into liquid water. Visualize the droplets gathering, heavy and lens-like, magnifying the grey light from outside. Eventually gravity wins, and a single drop breaks free, tracing a winding, erratic path down the glass, clearing a jagged road through the mist. There is a melancholy beauty in this wet glass. It blurs the world outside, turning trees into dark smudges and streetlights into soft, blooming stars of diffusion. If you were to reach out and touch the glass, your finger would leave a streak, a momentary window through the fog. This condensation acts as a visual shield, reinforcing the separation between the in here and the out there. It creates a sense of privacy and enclosure, as if the house itself is wrapping a misty shawl around its shoulders, hiding you from the gaze of the winter world. Through a small clear patch in the condensation, you spot a flash of rusty orange moving against the white drifts of the backyard. It is a red fox. Unlike the ermine that turns white to hide, the red fox keeps its fiery coat, a vibrant streak of life against the pallid landscape. Watch the way it moves, trotting with a light, bouncy gait, its large, triangular ears swiveling like radar dishes. The fox is listening for the secret sounds of the subnivean zone we explored earlier. Suddenly it stops. It tilts its head, triangulating the rustle of a mouse deep beneath the snow. Then, it performs one of the most athletic feats of the animal kingdom, the mousing dive. Visualize the fox leaping high into the air, arching its back like a diver, and plunging nose first into the snowbank. For a moment, only the bushy, white-tipped tail is visible, waving like a flag. Then it emerges, shaking the powder from its face. This burst of energy and colour is a reminder that winter is not just a time of endurance, but a time of play and precision. The The fox's coat, thick and lustrous, traps air just like your down duvet, allowing it to treat the snow not as a frozen wasteland, but as a hunting ground, a playground, and a home. Drifting far away from the enclosed garden and the fox, let your mind travel to the edge of the land where the snow meets the sea. The winter beach is a landscape of stark, haunting beauty, entirely different from its summer counterpart. The crowds are gone, the umbrellas are packed away, and the sand is often frozen hard as concrete or dusted with a layer of white frost. Visualize the ocean in winter. The water appears heavier, darker, often a deep, churning steel grey or charcoal. The sound of the waves is different too. Without the humidity of summer to soften the acoustics, the crash of the surf is sharper, more metallic and crisp. The sea foam, whipped up by the winter winds, can freeze as it hits the shore, leaving behind sea foam ice, distinct sponge-like clusters that shudder in the breeze. Driftwood lies bleached and bone-like on the shore, sculpted by the elements. Walking here, wrapped in layers against the biting salt wind, you feel a profound sense of solitude. The horizon seems sharper, the line between sea and sky more defined. It is a place of raw elemental power, where the ocean displays its strength without the softening effect of the sun, reminding us of the wild, untamable nature of the planet. Slipping beneath those grey, churning waves and travelling north to the ice-choked waters of the Arctic, we encounter a creature that seems to belong to the realm of myth, the narwhal. Often called the unicorn of the sea, the narwhal is defined by the long spiral tusk protruding from its head. This tusk is actually an elongated tooth, growing through the upper lip, spiralling to the left, and can reach lengths of up to 10 feet. Visualize a pod of these mottled grey and black whales moving slowly through the leads, the cracks of open water between the pack ice. The tusk is not a weapon for fighting. It is a sensory organ, packed with millions of nerve endings. It allows the narwhal to taste the salt concentration of the water, to detect temperature changes, and perhaps even to sense the formation of ice before it happens. Imagine the narwhal gently raising its tusk above the water surface, pointing it toward the sky like a spear. In the twilight of the Arctic winter, they move with a ghost-like grace, diving deep into the pitch-black waters to feed, guided by echolocation. They are the guardians of the deep freeze, thriving in a world of crushing ice and darkness, navigating the labyrinth of the frozen ocean with a sensory sensitivity we can barely comprehend. From the salty depths of the Arctic, let us transport our senses to a vineyard frozen in the heart of winter, where a sweet miracle is taking place. The vines are bare, twisted skeletons against the snow, but a few clusters of grapes have been left behind intentionally. These are the ingredients for ice wine. To create this rare nectar, the grapes must be left on the vine until the temperature drops to at least -8 degrees Celsius. Visualize the grapes, shriveled, hard as marbles, and dusted with frost. Inside each frozen sphere, the water content has turned to ice, but the sugars and dissolved solids remain liquid. When these grapes are harvested, often in the middle of the night by pickers wearing headlamps and thick gloves, and pressed while still frozen, the ice remains behind. Only a tiny drop of thick golden liquid is released. This syrup is intensely sweet, with concentrated flavours of apricot, honey and peach. It is the essence of the fruit distilled by the cold. Ice wine is a testament to the idea that extreme conditions can produce extreme beauty. It takes the harshness of the frost and uses it to extract the purest, sweetest heart of the grape, creating a liquid gold that warms the chest and delights the tongue. Leaving the vineyard, we wander into a forest of conifers to examine a small, often overlooked mechanism of winter protection, the fir cone. While we might kick them along the path as we walk, the pine cone is a marvel of responsive engineering. It is hygroscopic, meaning it changes its shape based on the humidity of the air. In the warm, dry days of summer, the scales of the cone open up, releasing their seeds to the wind. But visualize the cone now, in the damp, cold grip of winter. The scales have clamped shut, sealing tightly against one another. This creates a waterproof armoured shell that protects the remaining seeds and the delicate interior from freezing rain and heavy snow. It looks like a fortress, its shingles overlapped with geometric perfection, following the Fibonacci sequence of spirals. Pick one up. It feels solid, woody, and smooth. It is a lesson in defensiveness. The tree does not waste energy trying to disperse its seeds when the ground is frozen and inhospitable. Instead, it closes up, holds tight, and waits. It protects its potential, knowing that the time to open and release will come only when the sun returns. Finally, let us move from the closed, still forest to the wide, open expanse of a wild, frozen pond, where the ice has become a stage for motion. We are visualizing the experience of ice skating on wild ice. This is not the Zamboni smooth surface of an indoor rink. This is black ice, formed on a deep lake, transparent and dark as obsidian. You can look down through the ice and see air bubbles trapped in suspension, or weeds frozen in the stillness below. Imagine the sound of the metal blade striking this hard, natural surface. It is a rhythmic shh-clack, shh-clack, a sound that echoes off the surrounding hills. As you push off, there is a sensation of frictionless flight. The cold wind rushes against your face, created by your own speed. You are gliding over the surface of the water, separated from the depths by only a few inches of frozen crystal. The ice is not perfectly smooth. It has bumps and ridges that communicate through your boots, a texture that requires focus and balance. Every turn carves a white scar into the dark surface, a temporary calligraphy of your movement. It is a feeling of liberation, of moving faster and smoother than humanly possible on land, dancing on the very ceiling of the lake, held up by the strength of the cold. As the rhythmic sound of your skates carving lines into the black ice fades into the distance, let your gaze drift toward the edge of the frozen water, where the land rises to meet the winter sky. Here, standing as a stoic guardian against the elements, is a lighthouse. But in the deep winter, this structure undergoes a transformation that turns it into something otherworldly. We're observing the phenomenon of freezing spray. When the waves of the winter ocean crash against the base of the tower, the water is flung into the sub-zero air. Because the stone of the lighthouse is frozen, the water does not run off. It bonds instantly to the surface. Layer by layer, wave by wave, the lighthouse is swallowed by the ice. Visualize this architectural ghost standing on the headland. The railings, the lantern room and the door are encased in thick, bulbous formations of white rime and clear glaze. It looks less like a building and more like a giant candle that has melted and rehardened, or a sculpture carved from clouds. The ice softens the hard geometry of the engineering, rounding every corner, creating a chaotic, organic texture that shimmers in the pale sunlight. Inside, the light still rotates, a warm, rhythmic pulse beating through the translucent shell. It is a powerful symbol of resilience. The light continues to shine, keeping its vigil, even when the structure itself is entombed in the very element it was built to warn against. Turning away from the icy sentinel and stepping off the frozen lake onto the snow-covered shore, your boots make a sound that tells you exactly how cold the air has become. You hear a sharp, high-pitched squeak or crunch with every step. This specific acoustic signature is a thermometer for the ears. When the temperature is just below freezing, snow particles are coated with a microscopic layer of liquid water. When you step on them, this water acts as a lubricant, allowing the crystals to slide silently past each other. But when the temperature plunges to 14 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, that liquid layer vanishes. The ice crystals become dry, brittle, and high friction. Visualize the pressure of your boot heel crushing these dry grains. They do not slide, they shatter and grind against one another. The squeak you hear is the collective sound of millions of ice bonds breaking and crystals rubbing together without lubrication. It is a sound of absolute dryness and intensity. Walking on this dry snow feels different too. It offers more resistance, a tactile feedback that confirms the severity of the cold. It is a crisp, rhythmic music that accompanies the deep winter walker, a signal from the ground itself that the heat has retreated, and the ice is now the undisputed master of the landscape. Following this squeaking path deep into the high northern latitudes, we encounter a predator that has mastered the physics of light to survive the cold, the polar bear. While we perceive this majestic animal as white, blending perfectly with the snow, the truth is far more fascinating. If you were to look at a single hair of a polar bear under a microscope, you would see that it is not white at all. It is transparent and hollow, like a tiny glass tube. The whiteness we see is a trick of the light, caused by scattering, much like the white of a cloud or sea foam. The sunlight hits these clear, hollow hairs and bounces around inside them, reflecting back to our eyes as a brilliant white luminescence. But the engineering genius lies beneath the fur. Visualize the skin of the polar bear. It is jet black. This dark pigment is designed to absorb every photon of solar energy that passes through the clear fur. The hollow hairs act like fiber optic cables, funneling the sun's heat down toward the black skin, where it is absorbed to warm the bear's body. To watch a polar bear lounging on an ice floe is to watch a living solar panel at work. It is a creature of shadow wrapped in a cloak of light, a biological paradox that uses the sun's own physics to thrive in a place where the sun is a rare and precious guest. As the polar bear wanders across the ice, the day begins to wane, and the sun drops toward the jagged peaks of the distant mountains. It is here that the winter sky performs one of its most dramatic magic tricks, alpenglow. This phenomenon is distinct from a regular sunset. It occurs when the sun is actually just below the horizon. The direct light is gone, but the atmosphere acts as a prism, bending the longest wavelengths of light, the reds and pinks, over the curve of the earth. Visualize the snow-capped summits of the mountains. The valleys are already plunged into blue shadow, cold and dark. But the very tips of the peaks are suddenly ignited with a soft, burning fire. The snow turns shades of cotton candy pink, deep rose, and violet. It looks as if the mountains are glowing from within, retaining the heat of the day. This light is diffuse and shadowless, painting the rugged, dangerous terrain with a brush of softness and romance. It is a fleeting moment, lasting only a few minutes. To witness alpenglow is to feel a sense of elevation. Your eyes are drawn upward, out of the darkness of the valley, to the high places where the light clings to the earth for one last moment before the stars take over. It is nature's closing curtain, a gentle, colourful promise that the sun has not abandoned the world, but merely slipped out of sight. Beneath those glowing mountains, buried deep within the slow-moving rivers of ice known as glaciers, lies a hidden world of silence and saturation, the ice cave. These temporary cathedrals are formed by meltwater running through the glacier in the summer, carving out tunnels that drain away in the winter, leaving behind hollow chambers. Imagine stepping into one of these caverns. The air inside is still and damp, but it is the colour that stops your breath. You're not surrounded by the white of snow, but by an intense, glowing sapphire blue. This is glacial blue, created because the ice is so dense and free of air bubbles that it absorbs all red and yellow light, allowing only the blue wavelengths to penetrate and scatter. Visualize the walls, scalloped and smoothed by the flow of water, looking like polished glass or frozen waves. The light seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, radiating from the ice itself. It is a sensory immersion in the colour of cold. Being inside an ice cave feels like being inside a diamond or the deep ocean, yet you are dry. It is a secret pocket of the winter world, a place where the architecture is built by water and time, constantly shifting, collapsing and reforming, a beauty that exists regardless of whether human eyes are there to see it. Emerging from the surreal blue of the ice cave, you crave a tactile sensation that is warm, dry, and incredibly soft. Your mind travels to the high plateaus of the Himalayas, where the wind bites with a ferocity that would freeze unprotected skin in minutes. Here, the Kashmir goat grazes. To survive this brutal environment, this humble animal produces a miracle of insulation. Beneath its coarse, shaggy outer guard hairs lies a hidden layer of downy undercoat. This is cashmere. The fibres are incredibly fine, 6 times finer than a human hair, and possess a unique crimp that traps insulating air pockets. Visualize running your hand over a folded sweater made from this material. It is a cloud spun into yarn. The softness is not just a texture, it is a thermal barrier. When you wear it, the fibre adapts to your body temperature, keeping you warm without the bulk of heavy wool. It is a gift of warmth born from the necessity of extreme cold. The goat sheds this coat naturally in the spring when the weather warms, leaving behind the clumps of soft gold on bushes and rocks. To wrap yourself in cashmere is to borrow the survival strategy of the mountain creature, enveloping yourself in a layer that was designed by evolution to defy the wind and hold on to the heat of life. Now imagine taking that warmth and combining it with a shock of cold to create a taste that defines the winter harvest. We are in a sugar maple forest, where the sap has been boiled down into thick amber syrup. But instead of pouring it onto pancakes, we are pouring it directly onto a trough of fresh packed snow. This is the tradition of sugar on snow, or maple taffy. Visualize the physics of this culinary moment. The boiling hot syrup, reaching temperatures of over 230 degrees, hits the freezing snow. The thermal shock is instant. The syrup does not melt the snow away. Instead, the snow seizes the heat, cooling the liquid so rapidly that it thickens into a soft, pliable wax. You take a wooden stick and roll the strip of chilling syrup around it. The sensory experience of eating it is a study in contrasts. The candy is cold on the surface but still warm and gooey in the centre. It tastes of wood smoke, caramel, and the mineral essence of the tree, framed by the clean, neutral chill of the snow crystal sticking to it. It is a fleeting treat, a confection that can only exist in the presence of winter. It connects the sweetness of the coming spring with the preservation power of the current cold, a literal taste of the season's transition. Leaving the sugar bush, we travel to a different kind of farm, one that looks like a series of frozen red lakes. These are the cranberry bogs in winter. The cranberry is a hardy vine that does not like the drying winds of the cold season. To protect them, farmers flood the fields with water, which then freezes into a solid sheet of ice. Visualize standing at the edge of one of these bogs. Beneath the clear, thick window of ice, you can see the vines suspended in the water, their leaves turning a deep burgundy, and perhaps a few leftover berries glowing like ruby beads. The ice acts as a blanket, keeping the temperature around the plants at a steady freezing point, protecting them from the fluctuating air temperatures that could heave the soil and tear their roots. It is a landscape of suspended animation. The red and green world below the ice looks like a preserved terrarium. When the sun hits the surface, the ice glares white, but looking down, you see the promise of the next harvest, safely tucked away in its liquid and solid cradle. It is a reminder that sometimes the best way to survive a harsh environment is to be submerged, protected by a barrier that looks cold but provides the stability needed for life to endure. Nearby, in a vast flat field that stretches to the horizon, another crop is sleeping under a different kind of blanket. This is winter wheat. Planted in the autumn, these green shoots emerge just before the frost, only to be covered by the falling snow. To the uninitiated eye, the field looks dead and barren, a wasteland of white. But underneath the drifts, a biological marvel is occurring. The snow acts as a spectacular insulator. While the air temperature might be 20 degrees below zero, the soil temperature beneath a foot of snow remains near 32 degrees, just right for the dormant wheat. Visualize the tiny green blades curled up in the dark, humid space between the soil and the snowpack. They are not growing, but they are alive, metabolizing slowly, protected from the desiccation of the wind. This is vernalization, a necessary process where the plant acquires the ability to flower in the spring only after prolonged exposure to cold. The winter is not a pause in the farming cycle, it is an active part of the plant's development. The field is quietly working, using the chill to trigger the genetic switches that will lead to the golden grain of summer. It teaches us that progress is not always visible, and that rest is a biological imperative, not a luxury. Finally, let us expand this concept of the dormant wheat to the human mind itself. We arrive at the concept of wintering. In our modern world, we often demand of ourselves that we be in a state of eternal summer, always blooming, always productive, always bright. But nature dictates a rhythm of expansion and contraction. Winter is the contraction. Visualize the trees pulling their sap down into their roots, the bears slowing their hearts, the seeds waiting in the dark. This is not death, it is a gathering of resources. Wintering is the practice of allowing yourself to go fallow. Imagine your mind as a field that has been harvested. It needs to rest, to absorb the nutrients of silence and darkness, to repair the soil of your spirit. In this state of wintering, you're not lazy. You're doing the deep, invisible work of renewal. You're allowing your ideas to undergo stratification, just like the seeds, waiting for the right moment to crack open. Embrace the shorter days and the longer nights not as a limitation, but as a permission slip. The cold forces you indoors, forces you to sit still, forces you to look at the fire instead of the horizon. It is a time to heal, to read, to dream, and to prepare for the inevitable return of the light. By accepting the winter, you align yourself with the wisdom of the earth, understanding that the bloom is only possible because of the rest that came before it. As we settle deeper into this state of necessary wintering, allowing our spirits to lie fallow and rest, let us expand our awareness from the internal landscape to the cosmic position of our planet. It is a beautiful paradox of the winter season in the Northern Hemisphere that, while the air freezes and the winds howl, our Earth is actually physically closer to the Sun than at any other time of the year. This phenomenon is known as perihelion. Visualize the great elliptical orbit of our world floating in the vast black ocean of space. In early January, we swing into the nearest point of our journey around the star, some 3 million miles closer than we are in the heat of July. We do not feel this proximity as heat because our hemisphere is tilted away, leaning back in a gesture of cosmic modesty. But there is a comfort in knowing this truth, that in the very heart of the cold, we are held in the tightest embrace by our sun. We are bathing in the highest intensity of solar radiation, even if it glances off us at a shallow angle. It is a secret intimacy between the planet and the star, a silent reassurance that the distance we feel is merely a matter of perspective, and that the source of all life is actually nearer to us now, in the dark, than it ever is in the light. Drifting down from this orbital perspective, let us focus our gaze on the high branches of the winter forest, where another paradox of the season is taking place. While most birds wait for the gentle warmth of spring to raise their young, the great horned owl chooses the dead of winter to begin its family. This is the tiger of the air, a stoic warrior of the freeze. Visualize a large, abandoned nest high in an oak or pine piled with snow. Sitting atop this mound is the female owl, a motionless statue of mottled brown and grey feathers. She's incubating her eggs in January or February, often covered in a layer of fresh snow herself. How do the eggs survive? She creates a brood patch on her belly, a zone where she has plucked her own feathers to allow her warm, vascular skin to touch the shells directly. She becomes a living furnace. She will sit there for over a month, braving blizzards and sub-zero winds, fueled by the food her mate brings her. To witness a great horned owl nesting is to witness the triumph of biological heat over the elements. She's a lighthouse of warmth in the canopy, protecting the fragile spark of the next generation, while the rest of the world remains in a deep, frozen slumber. Beneath the tree where the owl keeps her vigil, in the understory of the woods, A strange and resilient shrub defies the botanical rules of the season. This is the witch hazel. In a landscape defined by bare branches and dormancy, the witch hazel chooses this unlikely moment to bloom. Visualize walking through a grey and white forest and suddenly stumbling upon a bush exploding with colour. The flowers are not lush, delicate petals like a rose. They are crinkled, ribbon-like tendrils of bright yellow, copper or red. They look like streamers of confetti thrown onto the branches. These petals have a remarkable ability. When the temperature drops dangerously low at night, they curl up tight, retreating into themselves to protect their reproductive parts. As soon as the sun hits them the next morning, they unfurl again. Lean in close, and you might catch their scent, a spicy, citrusy fragrance that hangs in the cold air, unpolluted by the smells of other plants. Finding a blooming witch, hazel in the snow feels like finding a secret message, a burst of defiance that proves life does not stop for the winter. It simply finds a different, bolder way to express itself. Leaving the woods and approaching the edge of a frozen marshland, we encounter a masterclass in architectural insulation, the Beaver Lodge. From the outside, it looks like a chaotic pile of sticks and mud rising from the ice-covered pond. But this is a fortress of comfort. In the late autumn, the beaver coats the stick structure with wet mud, which freezes in the winter to become as hard as concrete, impenetrable to wolves and wolverines. Visualize the interior chamber carved out above the waterline. It is lined with wood shavings and dried grass. Inside, a family of beavers huddles together. Their body heat, trapped by the thick walls, keeps the temperature inside the lodge significantly warmer than the outside air, often above freezing, even when it is 40 below zero outside. If you were to stand on the ice near the lodge on a very cold day, you might see a thin wisp of steam rising from the very top of the mound. This is the chimney, a ventilation shaft left intentionally open to allow fresh air in and stale air out. It is a sign of the cozy domestic life happening just feet below the surface, a warm, dry living room hidden in the middle of a frozen lake. The sight of that wisp of steam brings our attention to the visual evidence of heat in a cold environment. There is something primal and beautiful about the steam rising from a living body in winter. Imagine standing near a fence where a horse has just finished a gallop in the snow. The animal is still, its breath puffing in rhythmic clouds, but it is the steam rising from its flanks that mesmerizes you. The sweat and moisture on the horse's coat evaporate and instantly condense in the frigid air, creating a glowing aura around the animal. It looks as if the horse is burning with an internal fire, its life force visible to the naked eye. This bio-steam blurs the edges of the creature, merging it with the atmosphere. It reminds us of the furnace that burns within all of us. In the summer, this heat is invisible, lost to the humid air, but in the winter, the cold acts as a canvas, revealing the energy we generate simply by existing. Watching that steam rise and dissipate is a meditation on vitality, a proof of the warmth that life sustains against the entropy of the cold. Turning from the horse to the vegetation along the stream bank, we find a plant that offers a different kind of sensory comfort, a tactile one. These are the pussy willows. Before the true leaves of spring appear, the willow sends out its catkins, the furry, silver-grey nubs that line its branches. These are actually flowers, protecting themselves from the cold with a coat of fine, silky hairs. Visualize running your fingertip over one of these buds. It feels incredibly soft, like the paw of a kitten or the finest velvet. This fur serves the same purpose as the coat of the Arctic fox. The hairs trap a layer of air around the flower parts, insulating them from the frost and acting as a miniature greenhouse to capture solar heat. In the harsh, brittle texture of the winter landscape, where ice is sharp and bark is rough, the pussy willow offers a touch of gentleness. It invites you to reach out and feel the softness that nature provides, a tiny, strokeable promise that the softness of spring is already waking up inside the armour of the tree. As the twilight deepens and the temperature plummets rapidly, The silence of the land might be broken by a deep, booming sound that seems to come from the earth itself. This is a cryoseism, also known as a frostquake. It is a rare and awe-inspiring phenomenon that occurs when the ground is saturated with water and then freezes very quickly. Water expands when it turns to ice. When this happens deep underground and the pressure builds up with nowhere to go, the rock and soil eventually snap under the tension. The result is a sudden rumble or a loud crack like a sonic boom that vibrates through the soles of your feet. While it might sound startling, there is a majesty to it. It is the sound of the earth stretching and settling into its winter skin. It reminds us that the ground beneath us is not a dead, static thing, but an active, dynamic participant in the season. To hear a frostquake is to hear the sheer physical power of the cold, a force strong enough to crack the bedrock and shake the forest floor. As the echoes of the earth fade, you tilt your head back to look at the sky, where the winter atmosphere is putting on a light show. In the southern sky, dominating the heavens, burns the star Sirius, also known as the Dog Star. It is the brightest star in our night sky, but in winter it behaves differently. Because it is often low on the horizon in the evenings, its light must travel through a thick layer of Earth's turbulent atmosphere to reach your eyes. This journey causes intense scintillation or twinkling. But Sirius does not just blink white, it flashes with a spectrum of colour. Visualize staring at this diamond in the sky and seeing it pulse with aggressive shards of red, blue, and emerald green. It looks like a disco ball spinning in the dark. This prismatic effect is caused by pockets of air at different temperatures acting as lenses, breaking the starlight into its constituent colours. The colder and more turbulent the air, the more colourful the show. Watching Sirius flash in the freezing night is hypnotic. It connects the biting cold of the air you breathe with the distant beauty of the cosmos, turning the atmosphere into a kaleidoscope for your personal viewing. Retreating from the dazzling starlight, we move back indoors to engage the sense of smell, which is deeply tied to memory and warmth. One of the most enduring scents of winter is the pomander, an orange studded with whole cloves. This tradition dates back to medieval times, but the sensory experience is timeless. Visualize the process, holding a firm, bright orange in one hand and pressing the sharp, dried flower bud of a clove into the rind. As the skin of the fruit breaks, it releases a burst of citrus oil. This bright, zesty scent immediately mixes with the deep, woody, spicy aroma of the clove. It is a complex perfume, sweet yet earthy, sharp yet warming. As the pomander dries over the weeks, the orange shrinks and the scent concentrates, filling the room with a fragrance that feels like a hug. The clove acts as a natural preservative, halting the decay of the fruit, just as winter halts the decay of the land. Inhaling this aroma triggers a physiological warmth. The brain associates these spices with baked goods, holidays, and safety. It is a scent that grounds you, wrapping you in an olfactory blanket of tradition and comfort. Finally, let us explore the texture that best embodies the indoor luxury of winter: velvet. In the summer, we crave linen and cotton, fabrics that breathe and let go. But in the winter, we crave fabrics that hold. Velvet is a woven, tufted fabric in which the cut threads are evenly distributed, with a short, dense pile, giving it a distinctive soft feel. Visualize running your hand across a cushion or a curtain made of deep, midnight blue velvet. The fabric has a nap, meaning it feels smooth in one direction and resistant in the other. This density absorbs light rather than reflecting it, giving the colour a richness and depth that seems bottomless. When you sit in a velvet chair, the fabric warms up instantly against your body, eliminating the shock of the cold. It muffles sound, adding to the hush of the room. There is a heaviness to it, a substantial quality that feels protective. To be wrapped in velvet is to be encased in softness and shadow, a tactile experience that slows down your movements and invites you to linger, to touch, and to sink deeper into the repose of the season. Leaving the plush, absorbing silence of the velvet chair, your attention is drawn to the source of the room's profound and steady warmth. It is not a metal radiator or a blowing vent, but a massive structure of stone, the masonry heater. In the alpine regions of Europe, these are known as cachalofen, ceramic stoves that act as the thermal heart of the home. Visualize a large tiled monument rising from the floor, cool to the look but radiating a gentle, persistent heat to the touch. Unlike a standard fireplace where the heat escapes up the chimney, a masonry heater forces the hot exhaust to wind through a labyrinth of channels inside the stone mass before it exits. The heavy stone, often soapstone or fire brick, absorbs the intense energy of the fire, acting as a thermal battery. It holds this heat for hours, sometimes even days, releasing it slowly into the room in the form of radiant energy. This is the same kind of heat we receive from the sun. It does not just warm the air, it warms the objects and the bodies in the room directly. Imagine leaning your back against the smooth, warm tiles. The sensation is deep and penetrating, sinking into your spine and relaxing the muscles. It is a presence in the room, a silent, benevolent giant that guards the temperature, smoothing out the peaks and valleys of the winter cold, providing a stability that feels as solid and enduring as the mountain stone from which it was built. In the quiet warmth radiated by this stone heart, the house itself begins to speak. Winter is the season when our homes reveal their own voices, responding to the thermal dance between the freezing exterior and the cozy interior. Listen closely to the subtle symphony of a winter house at night. You might hear the faint rhythmic tick-tick-tick of copper pipes expanding behind the walls as hot water rushes through them to the radiators. There is the occasional deep wooden groan of a floorboard settling, or the sharp crack of a roof rafter contracting in the plunging temperatures outside. These are not sounds of distress. They are the sounds of a shelter doing its work. The house is a living membrane, expanding and contracting, breathing with the elements. In the deep silence of a snow-covered night, these sounds are magnified, becoming a comforting percussion. They remind you that you are held within a structure that is actively resisting the weather. Each tick and creak is a testament to the strength of the beams and the flow of the warmth, a mechanical lullaby that tells you the systems of protection are functioning perfectly, allowing you to drift deeper into the safety of the indoors. Gazing out through the window, past the ticking walls, you look toward the skeletal silhouette of a deciduous tree against the grey sky. In summer, the tree is a cloud of green, its structure hidden by leaves. But winter reveals the tree's true nature, a masterpiece of fractal geometry. A fractal is a pattern that repeats itself at different scales, and nowhere is this more visible than in a winter oak or maple. Look at the trunk. It splits into large boughs. Look at the boughs. They split into smaller branches. Look at the branches. They split into twigs. At every level, the pattern of Y-shaped branching is identical. This is the mathematics of nature laid bare. There is a deep, subconscious soothing effect in observing these fractals. Research suggests that the human brain is hardwired to find peace in these self-similar patterns. They reduce stress levels simply by being observed. The winter tree looks like a frozen river system in the sky, or the map of the human nervous system. It is a visual echo of the way life organises itself. Stripped of its decoration, the tree stands in its honest, structural beauty, a complex etching against the clouds that invites the eye to travel endlessly from the centre to the edge, getting lost in the infinite detail of the design. Bringing your gaze closer, from the high branches to the cracks and crevices of the window frame itself, you might discover a tiny, huddled community seeking refuge. These are the ladybugs. We often think of insects as simply dying off in the winter, but many, like the convergent lady beetle, enter a state of adult diapause, a form of hibernation. Visualize a cluster of them, perhaps tucked into the corner of an attic or beneath a loose piece of siding. They do not hibernate alone. They aggregate, gathering in groups of hundreds or even thousands. This clumping is a survival strategy. By packing their bodies tight against one another, they share the minuscule amount of heat they generate and reduce the surface area exposed to the dry, cold air. To see a mass of ladybugs is to see a living mosaic of red and orange dots, a dormant fire. They remain perfectly still, their metabolism slowed to a crawl, living off the stored fats from the summer aphids. There is a sweetness to this image, the fiercest predators of the garden curled up together like sleeping children, waiting out the dark days in a collective embrace, proving that even the smallest lives understand the power of community in the face of the freeze. Leaving the window and letting your mind wander down to the flowing water of a slow-moving river, you notice a strange and mesmerizing formation on the surface. The water is not frozen solid, but it is covered in thousands of circular plates of ice. This is pancake ice. These distinct lily-pad shapes form when water begins to freeze in a turbulent current. The moving water prevents a solid sheet from forming, so the ice creates small, slushy rafts. As these rafts bump into each other in the gentle waves, their edges are knocked up and thickened, creating a raised rim around the perimeter of each circle. Visualize these icy pancakes, ranging from the size of a dinner plate to the size of a tractor tire, drifting downstream in a vast, crowded flotilla. They rotate slowly as they move, grinding softly against their neighbours. The sight is textured and rhythmic, a mesmerising puzzle of white circles on dark water. It looks like the scales of a giant white dragon moving through the valley. It is a reminder that water wants to freeze, and it will find a geometric shape that fits the motion of the river, creating a moving sculpture that exists only in the delicate balance between flow and frost. On the snowy bank alongside this river of drifting pancakes, a bird moves with a peculiar shuffling gait. This is the ptarmigan, a member of the grouse family that is the true champion of winter camouflage and adaptation. We have spoken of animals changing colour, and indeed the ptarmigan turns from mottled brown to pure white. But its most fascinating winter trait is found on its feet. Visualize the bird's toes. In the summer, they are bare and scaled like a chicken's. But as winter approaches, the ptarmigan grows a dense fringe of stiff feathers around each toe. These are natural snowshoes. This feathered footwear doubles the surface area of the foot, allowing the bird to walk on top of the soft, fresh powder without sinking. It also provides a thick layer of insulation between the bird's skin and the ice. Look closely at the tracks it leaves behind. They are fuzzy and indistinct, soft impressions rather than sharp claws. The ptarmigan moves through the world wrapped entirely in its own down, a soft white sphere of warmth that has evolved to float over the snow rather than fight through it. It is a creature of softness surviving in a world of hard edges. Imagine reaching down to the snow where the ptarmigan walked. You scoop up a handful of the white powder. It is loose and fluffy, but as you squeeze your hands together, the snow transforms. You're engaging in the physics of sintering. This is the process where loose particles bond together into a solid mass without melting, driven by pressure and heat. When you compress the snow to make a snowball, you're forcing the ice crystals into contact. The pressure creates a microscopic amount of heat, just enough to melt the tips of the crystals, which then instantly refreeze as ice bridges, welding the crystals together. Visualize the sensation in your palms, the soft, yielding powder suddenly becoming a hard, dense sphere. The crunch you feel is the sound of the air being squeezed out and the structure densifying. This simple act of making a snowball is a hands-on lesson in thermodynamics. It is the ability to take the chaotic, airy substance of the storm and, with the pressure of your own hands, forge it into something solid and substantial. It connects your physical strength to the raw material of the season, shaping the landscape one handful at a time. As you stand there, the sky begins to darken and the snow begins to fall harder. The world around you starts to disappear. You're experiencing the snow globe effect, or a whiteout. While this can be dangerous for a traveller, in the safety of our visualization, it is a moment of profound isolation and peace. The horizon, usually a sharp line dividing earth and sky, vanishes. The trees in the distance fade into ghosts, then into nothing. There is no up, no down, No north, no south. Only the swirling white vortex immediately around you. The visual data of the world is erased. This sensory deprivation forces your focus inward. You're the center of a small moving room of white. The falling flakes dampen the sound to a studio-like silence. It is a cocoon of weather. In this sphere, there are no obligations, no destinations, because there is no visible path to take. You are forced to stop, to stand still, and to simply be present with the falling sky. It is a reset button for the mind, wiping the slate clean, covering the complexity of the world in a blank, fresh page. Seeking shelter from the intensifying whiteout, you duck beneath the low, sweeping branches of a balsam fir tree. Here, in the dry, needle-carpeted space near the trunk, you encounter a scent that is the very essence of winter health. The bark of the balsam fir is covered in small, raised bumps known as resin blisters. Visualize pressing your thumbnail gently into one of these blisters. It pops with a satisfying snap, releasing a drop of sticky, clear sap. The aroma that fills the air is immediate and overpowering, sharp, clean, camphorous and sweet. It smells of the high mountains and cold air. This resin is nature's antiseptic, used for thousands of years to heal wounds and clear breathing passages. Inhaling it feels like scrubbing your lungs from the inside out. It cuts through the cold, waking up the senses, grounding you in the reality of the forest. The sticky resin on your finger is a tangible connection to the tree's immune system, a concentrated packet of summer's solar energy stored and defended against the cold, waiting to offer its healing fragrance to the winter wanderer. Finally, having weathered the whiteout and breathed the balsam air, you return to the sanctuary of the indoors. As you step across the threshold and close the heavy door against the wind, you experience the distinct physiological rush of coming in from the cold. This is the sensation of vasodilation. When you were outside, your body wisely constricted the blood vessels in your skin to keep your warm blood deep in your core to protect your organs. Your cheeks and fingers became pale and cool. But now, in the safety of the warm room, the instruction is reversed. The floodgates open. Visualize the warm blood rushing back to the surface of your skin. It starts as a tingle in the fingertips and the nose, then blooms into a profound, radiant heat. Your cheeks flush pink, glowing with the return of circulation. This winter glow is physically pleasurable, a wave of relief and relaxation that washes over you. It is the body's way of celebrating safety. You feel heavy, loose, and intensely alive. The contrast between the memory of the biting wind and the current reality of the warm room creates a state of deep gratitude. You have faced the elements, and now you have returned to the hearth, carrying the invigorating energy of the cold on your skin as you settle back into the profound comfort of home. Holding on to that delicious resonant heat of the winter glow, your mind seeks a way to prolong the sensation, to capture it and take it with you into the deepest part of the night. This brings us to the humble, timeless comfort of the hot water bottle. Before electric blankets and central heating, there was this simple vessel of rubber or ceramic, filled with boiling water, a portable sun to tuck beneath the covers. Visualize the ritual of preparing it. You stand by the kettle, listening to the water rolling to a boil. You pour the steaming liquid into the bottle, smelling the faint, distinct aroma of warm rubber or the wool of its knitted cover. The weight of it is significant, heavy, fluid, and shifting like a living thing. When you slide it into your bed, down to the bottom where the sheets are crisp and cold, it transforms the environment. It radiates a localized, intense heat that seeks out the coldest parts of you, the toes, the soles of the feet. Placing your feet against it triggers a reflex of pure relaxation that travels up your legs and settles in your lower back. It is a trusty companion in the dark, a reservoir of thermal energy that slowly releases its charge over the course of the night, mirroring the slow descent of your own body into sleep. It is a reminder that comfort is often about weight and warmth combined, a heavy, hot anchor that keeps you tethered to the shore of sweet dreams, while the storm rages outside. From the tactile warmth of the bed, let your imagination drift to a quiet table in the corner of the room, illuminated by the pool of a single lamp. Here lies a winter pastime that celebrates patience and the slow reconstruction of beauty, the jigsaw puzzle. In the summer, we move fast, but winter grants us the permission to sit for hours, sorting through chaos to find order. Visualize the cardboard pieces spread out on the table, a sea of fragmented colours. The tactile experience is precise and dry. The pieces are cool, smooth and matte. The sound is a soft click as two shapes find their perfect mate, a tiny sonic victory of connection. There is a meditative quality to this sorting, finding all the blue sky pieces, all the white snow pieces. It engages the mind just enough to silence the loop of worry, entering a flow state where time seems to dissolve. Outside, the wind may be dismantling the leaves from the trees, but inside you are building something. You're piecing together a landscape, a memory, or a work of art, one small, irregular shape at a time. It is a lesson in the philosophy of winter, that the big picture is made of small moments, and that if you are patient and observant, everything eventually fits into its proper place. As you stare at the interlocking lines of the puzzle, your mind draws a parallel to the intricate geometric masterpieces found outdoors in the frosty morning air. We drift to the garden to witness the frozen spiderweb. In the warmer months, these webs are often invisible, silky traps set in the shadows. But the winter moisture transforms them into necklaces of pearl and diamond. Visualize a web strung between two fence posts. The fog has frozen onto the silk strands, thickening them with white rime ice. Now, the architecture is revealed in startling clarity. You can see the spiral, the anchor lines, the tension, and the slack. It looks like a piece of grandmother's lace doily suspended in the air, stiff and fragile. If you breathe on it, it might shatter. This temporary sculpture highlights the incredible engineering of the spider, work that usually goes unnoticed. The frost gives weight to the invisible. It is a fleeting art gallery, open only to those who rise early, before the sun melts the ice and the web disappears back into transparency. It teaches us that the cold has the power to reveal the hidden structures of the world, outlining the delicate connections that bind things together. Beneath the fence post where the web hangs, curled tightly into a ball under a layer of fallen leaves, lies a small creature that defies the very definition of death. This is the woolly bear caterpillar. You might know it by its fuzzy rust and black banded coat. While other insects migrate or die, the woolly bear has evolved a strategy of total surrender. It finds a sheltered spot and allows itself to freeze solid. Visualize this tiny furry cylinder. Its heart stops beating. Its breathing ceases. Its body becomes hard as a rock. To any observer, it appears lifeless. But inside its cells, a miraculous chemistry is at work. The caterpillar produces a natural antifreeze, a cryoprotectant substance called glycerol, that prevents the water in its cells from crystallizing and rupturing the cell walls. It is a state of suspended animation, a pause button pressed on life itself. It will remain this way, a frozen statue, through the deepest blizzards of January. When the spring thaw comes, the glycerol will flush out, the heart will kickstart, and the caterpillar will crawl away to spin its cocoon. It is the ultimate act of faith in the cycle of the seasons, a fearless acceptance of the cold, knowing that the warmth will inevitably return to wake it up. Lifting your gaze from the microcosm of the leaf litter to the wide expanse of the open fields, you notice how the wind has sculpted the landscape using a human tool as its chisel. We are looking at a snow fence. These slatwood fences, often painted a weathered red or left as raw pine, are porous, designed with gaps between the slats. When the wind, carrying its load of driven snow, hits the fence, the air is forced through the gaps. This turbulence slows the wind down just enough that it drops its heavy cargo of snow. Visualize the result, a long, smooth, whale-shaped drift forming behind the fence. The drift is a perfect aerodynamic shape, a cornice of white that curves with the grace of a sand dune. The shadows in the lee of the fence are deep blue and purple, sharp and rhythmic stripes painted on the white canvas. This is passive engineering at its finest, using the wind's own energy to control where the snow lands, keeping the roads clear. It is a visual representation of how obstacles can create beauty, shaping the chaotic flow of the storm into predictable, elegant waves of white. Across the surface of these wind-sculpted drifts, a small, energetic figure bounds with a series of hops. It is the red squirrel. Unlike the bear or the groundhog, the squirrel does not sleep through the winter. It stays awake, relying on a map it drew in its mind months ago. Visualize the squirrel pausing on top of a snowbank, twitching its nose. Deep beneath the white surface, hidden in the frozen earth, lies a treasure, a single walnut or a cache of pine cones. The squirrel buried hundreds of these in the autumn. Now it must rely on spatial chunking, a memory technique where it remembers the location based on landmarks like trees and rocks. Watch as it digs furiously, snow flying behind it, tunneling down with unwavering confidence until it emerges with the prize. It sits up, holding the nut in its paws, nibbling quickly to fuel its high metabolism. This frantic energy is a spark of life in the dormant woods. The squirrel is a gardener of the forest. The nuts it forgets to retrieve will become the oak and hickory trees of the future. Its winter activity is a bridge between the seasons, a busy preparation for a spring it helps to create. While the squirrel holds onto its prize deep in the hardwood forest, a larger animal is preparing to let go. We are witnessing the shedding of antlers by the white-tailed deer. For the male deer, or buck, the antlers are a heavy crown worn throughout the autumn rut. They are bone, solid and heavy, demanding immense energy to carry. But as the winter deepens and testosterone levels drop, the connection between the antler and the skull weakens. Visualize the majestic buck walking through a quiet, snowy glade. He shakes his head, perhaps knocking it gently against a low branch. With a soft thud, one antler falls to the snow, followed shortly by the other. Suddenly he is lighter. The weight is gone. He's no longer a fighter, he's a survivor, conserving energy for the cold months ahead. The raw spots on his head will heal over quickly. The shed antlers, lying like ivory artifacts on the forest floor, will not go to waste. Mice and squirrels will gnaw on them for calcium. This act of shedding is a profound symbol of winter's wisdom, the knowledge of when to release what no longer serves you, to drop the heavy ego and the weaponry, and to walk unburdened into the quiet of the season. Leaving the deer to his lighter journey, we seek a place where the green of summer has been captured and preserved under glass. We are stepping into a winter greenhouse. The transition is instantaneous and sensory. You open the door and leave the biting, dry wind behind, stepping into a wall of humid, earthy air. The smell is intoxicating. Damp soil, crushed geranium leaves, and the minerality of water on stone. Visualize the condensation dripping down the glass panes, blurring the view of the snow outside. Inside, it is a jungle. Ferns unfurl their fronds, and perhaps a lemon tree holds bright yellow fruit hanging like ornaments. The silence here is different. It is a heavy, growing silence. You can almost hear the photosynthesis. The light is diffused and soft. Being in a greenhouse in January feels like finding a glitch in the matrix of the seasons, a pocket of resistance where life refuses to hibernate. It is a sanctuary for the spirit, a reminder that warmth and growth are always possible, provided we build the right structures to protect them. The contrast of seeing a blizzard rage on the other side of a thin pane of glass while you touch a warm, green leaf is a moment of pure, protected delight. From the humid warmth of the greenhouse, let us transport ourselves to a different kind of shelter, one that sits precariously on the frozen skin of a lake. It is the ice fishing tent. Visualize a small, cube-shaped tent made of thick, insulated fabric, anchored to the ice. It glows from within like a paper lantern, a warm orange beacon in the blue twilight. unzip the door and crawl inside. The air is warm, heated by a small propane heater. In the centre of the floor there is a circular hole cut through 2 feet of ice, revealing the black water below. This is a portal to the underworld. The fisherman sits on a bucket staring into this hole, watching the line. It is a vigil of patience. The world outside the tent ceases to exist. There is only the glow of the heater, the smell of canvas and coffee, and the hypnotic circle of water. It is a monastic experience, a solitude that is chosen and cherished. The ice makes strange, resonant booming sounds as it shifts, a reminder of the precariousness of the platform, but inside the tent there is a feeling of being in a cozy secret clubhouse, hovering over the deep, sleeping mysteries of the lake. Finally, stepping out of the tent and onto the open ice, you tilt your head back to the clearest, darkest sky of the year. Your eyes are drawn not to a single star, but to a delicate cluster of diamonds, the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters. In the winter sky, this star cluster is a hallmark of the season. It looks like a tiny, misty dipper, a smudge of light that resolves into distinct blue-white stars when you look slightly to the side of it, using your peripheral vision. These stars are young, hot, and surrounded by the dust of their birth. In many ancient cultures, the rising of the Pleiades signaled the time to harvest and prepare for winter. They are the celestial companions of the cold. Visualize their icy blue light travelling over 400 light-years to reach your retina. They seem to shiver in the cold atmosphere. Gazing at them, huddled together in the vast emptiness of space, evokes a feeling of kinship. They are a family of stars, close-knit and brilliant, watching over the winter world like a congregation of silent guardians, guiding the eye upward into the infinite reverence of the night. From that cluster of sister stars watching over the frieze, we descend one final time, landing softly in the centre of your own quiet understanding to uncover the ultimate truth of the season. This is the secret of the fertile void. We have travelled through forests and fields, observed ice and fire, animals and atmosphere, but the most profound fact of winter is invisible. It is the realization that in nature, emptiness is not nothingness. It is potential. Consider the silence of the winter woods. It feels like a pause, a gap in the song of the world. But physically and spiritually, this pause is the most important moment in the cycle of time. Just as the heart must pause between beats to fill with blood, the earth must pause in winter to fill with power. Deep in the soil, the roots of the oak and the maple are not merely sleeping. They are deepening their grip, communicating through fungal networks, sharing resources in the dark to ensure the canopy can rise again. The bulbs are gathering the specific code of cold they need to unlock their colour. The bear is dreaming the spring. This teaches us the final soothing lesson, that you're allowed to be still, you're allowed to be dormant. In a world that demands constant blooming, winter offers you a permission slip to stop. It whispers that rest is not the opposite of work, it is the prerequisite for it. The dark days are not a punishment, but a womb. They are the space where the energy for the future is generated. By surrendering to the winter, you are aligning yourself with the physics of the universe, which knows that without the deep restorative sleep of the cold, there can be no awakening. You are part of this great slow rhythm. You are not losing time by resting. You are gathering strength, just like the earth beneath the snow, preparing to dream a new world into existence when the light returns. And so, the journey completes its circle. The snow has fallen, covering our tracks, leaving a landscape of pure, unbroken white. The fire in the hearth has burned down to a bed of soft, glowing embers, pulsing with a gentle, rhythmic heat. The wind outside has softened to a whisper, a lullaby humming through the eaves. The owl has tucked its head beneath its wing, and the fox has curled into its tail. The world has accepted the gift of sleep, and now so must you. Feel the weight of these wonders settling over you like a heavy, warm quilt stitched together from the starlight and the snow. There is nothing left to learn tonight. There is nothing left to see. The door is locked, the curtains are drawn, and the sanctuary is sealed. You are floating in the centre of the winter night, suspended in the safe velvet darkness that holds the stars. Let your breathing slow down, matching the slow geological pace of the glaciers. Let your heart rate synchronize with the sleeping sap of the trees. You are heavy, you are warm, you are deeply, profoundly at peace. The season of rest has wrapped you in its arms, protecting you from the noise, holding you in the quiet space where dreams are born. Drift away now, floating on the river of silence, sinking deeper and deeper into the comfort of the void. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.